Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
I really like the variety because there's a lot of different parts of our region, and particularly in disaster space, I like that we're there for the community in kind of some of their worst times. We're able to assist. My role basically oversees and works with other emergency service agencies in town to assist the community in preparedness and then response and recovery following disaster events. I really enjoy working and living in Gladstone. We have great facilities here. People are really friendly. Council's a really good organisation to work for. Everyone's really committed to the community. I mean, we're all residents. We want to see what's best for the community happening. I do quite a few sports in town, so use a lot of our sporting facilities, as well as involved in the community theatre space. So getting to use the GECC, which we're really lucky to have. I do the community musicals, so we've done, I've been involved in Anything Goes, Legally Blonde, Carrie, and then also do foster caring through GPAWS, which is one of the animal rescue groups. Emma Catlin, Disaster Response Specialist for Gladstone Regional Council.
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
Being 9 a.m, I declare open the general meeting for the Gladstone Regional Council for Tuesday, the 1st of July 2025. The first item on the agenda is apologies, and we have previously resolved the apology from Councillor Muscat. There are no other apologies, as I have Councillor Churchill and Councillor Patrick both attending online. Messages of condolence, councillors. Do we have any messages of condolence this morning? No messages of condolence. The next item on the agenda is prior notifications of conflicts of interest, and I'll start with item 4.4. I, Mayor Matt Burnett, have a prescribed conflict of interest in agenda item G 4.4, annual insurance renewals, as I'm a director and president of the Local Government Association of Queensland, and the agenda item considers a contract between the council and LGAQ's subsidiary, the Local Government Mutual Scheme. I'll leave the room and will not participate in the decision, and I'll appoint a chair at the time. Councillor Patrick, I believe you have a conflict you'd like to raise as well.
Yeah, I do, Mayor Matt. Thank you. I, Councillor Leanne Patrick, wish to declare a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item G3 deputations, G/3.1 Cardia Proprietary Limited Kirkwood Community Village, This proposed development is in close proximity to my husband's business, McDonald's Kirkwood, which may result in a perceived or actual financial impact on his business interests. In accordance with my obligations under the Local Government Act and in the interest of transparency and maintaining public trust, I will leave the room for the duration of this presentation and will not participate in any further discussion or decision making relating on this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to. I may have a declarable conflict here in relation to today's agenda G 4.8, which is the statement of corporate intent with the Gladstone Airport Corporation. As the appointed director on the Gladstone Airport Corporation, I'm conflicted with the recommendation. As a councillor or as a director, perhaps to disagree. And I thank the manager for governance and risk for providing me with advice. And just to explain, while the legislation provides that I don't have a conflict of interest if I am a council appointed representative to the Gladstone Airport Corporation board, but I am conflicted by the recommendation. So for my colleagues to consider this particular point in relation to the officer's recommendation, the officer has also provided a second option, but I would like to declare that I have a declarable conflict of interest in this agenda item, G 4.8, Gladstone Airport Corporation's Statement of Corporate Intent for the financial year 2026, as the proposed amendment to the Statement of Corporate Intent conflicts with my duties as a councillor and as a director of the Gladstone Airport Corporation. I believe that I can offer valuable insights to the discussion without influencing the decision and propose that I remain in the room to answer any questions but will not vote. Over to you, Mayor Matt.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Tanya, can you talk us through that? Does that now need a resolution from Council?
It does. So a declarable conflict of interest has been declared, and now it's up to the boardroom to decide whether Councillor Churchill can remain or must leave the room.
Yep.
And Council can impose restrictions on him remaining in the room, such as Councillor Churchill's proposed, in terms of answering questions or participating in the discussion, but not the vote.
Okay. Questions? Councillor Holzheimer.
I am happy for Councillor Churchill to remain in the room because I think he will have some valuable insights in regards to the decision we're making today. However, not to proceed with voting as well. So happy to move that.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Holzheimer. Councillor Davis. Any other questions, councillors? Seems straightforward now. I'll put them up. Vote. All in favour? Councillor Churchill obviously can't vote. Thank you. It's carried. Councillor Churchill remain in the room but not vote on matter item G 4.8. Any other conflicts, councillors? Excellent. The next item on the agenda is the Mayor's statement on current issues, and I'll start with our citizenship ceremony, of course held on Monday the 16th of June. 39 new citizens choosing to make the Gladstone region their home. Our apprentice and trainee information session was held on the 17th of June. At the Phillip Street Communities Precinct. Looking forward to signing up our new trainees and apprentices, which will start with council early next year. One of the biggest events in the Gladstone region, of course, was held on the 21st and 22nd of June, the Mount Larkham Show, and thank you, Councillor Patrick, for opening that, attending and speaking on behalf of council. We had the Queensland Symphony Orchestra, Symphony Under the Stars, on Friday the 27th of June, and thank you Councillor Churchill for representing council at that event. Always a fantastic event supported by our major industries and the port, of course, that free amazing event there at the GPC Marina Parklands. Yesterday we hosted the CQU Mayor's Awards. Thank you Councillor Councillor McClintock for joining me there at the university. It's the Mayor's Awards are presented to Year 12 students, and they're a bursary for students that choose to attend the local university here at Central Queensland University. So it's some of the best, brightest future stars, and our reason for Council sponsoring this bursary is not only to recognise their hard work and the efforts they put into their fields, and in this instance it was engineering students, education students and medical science, 3 areas I'm sure we'll all agree we'd love to see more in our local region. And the idea of us sponsoring them and insisting that they go to the local university, as we all know that when you attend university locally, you're more likely to work locally when you finish your university degrees, and it has proven that to be the case. We have a few more events coming up. The official opening of Hydrogen Park tomorrow. Don't believe everything you read in the media. We are opening Hydrogen Park in Gladstone tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to that event. The Australian Gas Infrastructure Group have been operating for some time now, but the official opening is tomorrow. Thursday is our special budget meeting, and of course NAIDOC Week is happening from the 6th to the 13th of July, and all the events are on our GRC website. And Luminous tickets are on sale for Luminous at the Tondoon Botanic Gardens from the 17th to the 19th of July. This year, 3 nights of ticketed events. Make sure you get in to get those $5 per person, and then free for children under 5, I believe. But before I wrap up, I want to talk about the National General Assembly and thank staff and councillors Patrick and Holzheimer, who represented council at that event. Obviously, as National President, I chaired the debate and the conference, and I can assure you that our councillors did Gladstone proud, and their motions were passed on the floor as well. So well done, councillors. It was an amazing event of 1,300 delegates of mayors, shire presidents, deputy mayors, councillors and CEOs from around the nation coming together for the single largest event of local government in the nation. And it was great to see a number of ministers and shadow ministers attend, even though the sitting week was changed at the last minute. So thank you, councillors, for attending that event as well. If you have any further information, either Councillor Patrick or Holzheimer would like to add in general business, feel free. But I'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the confirmation of the minutes for the 17th of June, G2.1. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Cameron, and seconded Councillor Davis. Any questions, business arising? Put the motion, all in favour? That is carried. Thank you. Councillor Patrick has declared a conflict of interest in G3.1 and will now leave online and has done so. And I'd like to invite our guests, Nick, Jared and Sarah from Cadre to do their presentation to the council, please. We're going to invite you to the table. Thanks, guys. Over to you.
Thank you. First of all, hello all councillors, mayors and everyone else online. I'm Nick Tyus from Cadre Property. Joined by me is Jared, also from Cadre. And I think all of you would know Sarah quite well, who's local town planner from Zone Planning. I want to say, first of all, thank you for allowing us to do this deputation. It means a lot to give a bit of background on who we are, why we're working on this, and why Gladstone. So first of all, a bit about us, Cadre Property. We're a family-run property development and investment business, 3rd generation, and we focus on regional projects along the eastern seaboard of Australia. We are proud and passionate about developing community regional projects that thrive and shape the way people live, work and play. And we are very strong in building places that stand the test of time and will be there for multi-generations to come, and also support that community for whatever those needs be. On this project, we've partnered up with Argus Property, who have over 70 years in real estate experience. They are based out of Sydney, but they, again, specialise in regional projects and specialise in large format retail projects in particular, of large scale nature. They also share our values of enriching local communities and really building places where people can live, work and play together. So why Gladstone for us? It suits both our companies, given we love regional projects and we both work along the eastern seaboard together. We view Gladstone as an important and integral part of Australia to invest and a strategic location for Australia, given its underlying infrastructure and ability for Australia. We have very strong relationships with national A-grade tenants, and I'll get to that later on this development in particular. And we've been working on this project in the background for over 18 months to really foster and build up the tenant demand to come here. We love working on regional community projects that can really enrich that community and bring together a place where people can congregate, and we're passionate in bringing to Kirkwood a hub which can really thrive and bring Gladstone what it really needs in a community-focused project to bring people together. So our project team on this one in particular, I'll throw it over.
Morning, everyone. We've curated a team for this particular project of specialists who focus and excel in community, commercial, retail, mixed-use developments of this nature. Most notably, Thompson Adset. They've done some work in the region over the course of many years, and we have worked with them in the past, and they're well aware of what's needed in the area, and they're very aligned with what we're after here and what we want to deliver for the community, including Bornhorst and Ward, Saunders Havel Group, specialists in this master plan, retail, commercial style of development, and again, people that we've worked with very well in the past. And of course, we put together an A-grade, A1 planning team with human habitats locally based in Brisbane, but obviously called on the expertise of zone planning and Sarah Hunt from Zone and Stephen Enders, which has been hugely beneficial for us in making sure we understand the lay of the land here and making sure that we're integrating all the local knowledge in our design and meeting the needs of the community here in Gladstone.
So I wanted to give you a bit about our projects to give you guys comfort on what we can deliver and follow through with. So first one up on the screen is a regional project in New South Wales, Queensland, which is Grafton. This is 90% pre-committed to national A-grade tenants. It's under construction right now, and it will be the first project in Australia to achieve 5-star NABERS rating, which Jared and myself worked very closely with the NABERS board to make sure that credibility could be achieved in Australia and of this asset class.
Did you say NABERS board?
No, yep.
What's that?
So NABERS board is an independent board that certifies NABERS rating from a sustainability accreditation. Yep. Other projects that are up on the screen are completed projects which are purely large format retail assets. So first one being Home Centre Bathurst, Home Centre Morayfield, Home Centre Wagga Wagga, or Wagga Wagga, sorry, and Griffith. So then as I float through, all these projects I'm bringing up are just purely commercial nature to give you guys comfort and our track record in commercial developments. So another one is the Smithfield in Cairns and the Health Hub in Morayfield. Then as I go on as well, we've also got large format retail projects in Ballina, New South Wales, Devonport, Tasmania, and Sorrento, Victoria. Again, all along the eastern seaboard and of this asset class. Then the bottom ones are what Jared and I are very passionate about, are other regional projects in the northern rivers of New South Wales, was where one of our other second offices is based, and they're really community-focused projects that we have curated the needs of that area. So one is Bangalore, New South Wales, which it's a retail activation hub targeted towards creative retail, and the second one is Ballina, Solhaven, which is creative shop tops, again targeting the needs of that demographic in that area. So our vision for this project, I'll pass it over to Sarah, who can talk to a planning technicality.
Yep. So hopefully you're all familiar with the existing bulky goods approval that exists over the Kirkwood site. It was approved about a decade ago, I believe. It's approved for 44,000 square metres of large format retail showroom type development with a few specialty supporting uses. We are working towards maintaining as much of that approval as possible so it can align perfectly with the showroom delivery required for the Gladstone region, and something that is earmarked for that site under the current planning scheme. There will be a few changes to introduce a few additional uses, and you guys will be seeing that in the coming days when we lodge our other change application. I hope you take the time to have a thorough review of all the material, because the cadre team have worked very hard to make sure it's thorough and what the community actually needs. And yeah, I guess it's really delivering on what the original intent of that application or that approval was for, being large format retailing, bulky goods, showroom type activities. So, yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. So as I said, we Cadre and Argus team have worked on this project quite tirelessly over the last 18 years. One of the key 18 months. One of the key fundamentals that we've been working on is lining up that national A-grade tenant interest from both the needs and want to be here. We now have full commitment, subject to town planning, for stage 1 to follow through with this, which for me is key for this project, to set it up for success and to follow through and be able to deliver the entire thing over the next, I would say it's about a 10-year project, which I think will provide much needed stability and economic jobs, both in construction, and then once these stores open, it will give a really stable base of retail jobs for the local demographic and population in Gladstone. I'll throw it over to Jared to talk through a bit more about the 3 pillars of this project and what he's worked on from a design perspective.
Thanks. So from a design perspective, one of the key things obviously in this type of development, we've really integrated the needs of the tenants as a base and making sure that we're addressing their needs, but at the same time it's that fine balance of making sure that that flow between each building pad, as you see there over a master plan, is really accessible to the community, not just from an amenity to the surrounding areas with the residential land and surrounding lots of land there, but it's actually making sure that it's accessible from a DDA perspective as well. We've really addressed pedestrian pathways and walkways throughout, and each little box that you see there on the master plan is thoughtful and considerate of that. We've really focused on making sure that we're considering the flood overlays. Again, Bornhorst Ward specialist in doing the work in this region have considered the flood overlays through bioretention designs and making sure that we're really considering the ecological setbacks and constraints in and around the area. And that's been a critical part of our conceptual design and making sure that we're considering that spatially. Landscape architecture is something that's been really considered for us. I think it can sometimes be wanting in retail settings. I've really thought that through. It's a subtle landscape architecture to make sure that it's not just a big paddock of asphalt, and we're actually considering the heat effect and people are feeling comfortable when they come for the experience. In terms of sustainability, as you've seen, we've obviously delivering a neighbours rated LFR development in Grafton, and we'll be looking to implement the similar principles, the main one being solar. That's a real opportunity for us that we'll be looking to try and implement into this development, carefully and integrated, not just for the sake of it, but really making sure that there's give back. And also building mass, just being really sensible in the building mass, in the design, making sure that we're efficient in how we're going about that. I think that's really important for us. Obviously making beautiful buildings, but making it efficient and sensible to what we're offering. And then from a community perspective, we've really looked to listen to the feedback from council to date in terms of trying to provide, based on the mix of uses, particularly childcare, including communal barbecue areas and playground areas, to really make people want to come here, and families, whilst they're going about their day-to-day lives, to making sure that it's it's suitable for family usage, and we've really put some thought into that as well. So yeah, look, we believe it's quite a well-rounded design. Obviously, conceptually, there's more work to be done, but we're really happy with where we sit at the moment. We think it really ticks all the boxes in terms of the criteria and what you guys need as a community.
Yes, please do, Sarah.
Can we ask you a question? I think it's also important to note that the former developer who owned this land had this approval broken down into small precincts, so their deliverables over time were much smaller. Cadre have taken the time to commit to a lot more development in stages 1 and 2, which will be delivered at the same time, than what was originally intended. So they're committed to actually delivering the development and the tenants on the ground.
Lovely. I've got some questions, and I'm sure councillors do too. You still got more of your presentation?
No, I was just going to say, just want to close by saying thank you for allowing us to have the time to give this deputation, give you background, and just a closing statement that we really want to follow through with this, with the support of you guys, and deliver a much needed community centre that people can congregate with that national tenant demand that really wants to be in Gladstone. So thank you.
Thank you. I've got a few councillors lining up to speak. I'll get started. You mentioned DDA compliant, which is very important. I'll just write down the councillors who's next. And that each one of those boxes, probably on... Can we go back to the previous screen? That one there.
This one?
Oh,
Yep.
Well, actually, the one before, so I'm assuming that that's stage 1, and then the other thing is the whole project.
No, that's all stage 1 on that.
That's stage 1
Yep.
just there?
So we've worked on, for the last 18 months, we've been lining up tenant demand for this entirety of stage 1. What you are looking at on the screen is what we intend to deliver all entirely as stage 1.
Wow, that's a lot of
Yep.
big box centres. And thank you for mentioning about how it's connectivity. I just guess for me, if I rock up there with my granddaughter and I'm in the big box centre on the left, how do I, don't need to tell me now, but in your application, I'm assuming, like from what you just said, I'll be able to walk the pram all the way around the other end without going through a car park.
That's the intention. We've obviously got to make sure.
Yeah.
That's the intention, absolutely. We want to make sure that our footpath access is accessible. There's no point having an isolated box where you can't actually access it and walk. We've got buses coming into Weagle Road and making sure that you can actually access it. That's absolutely the intention of our design, and we've provisioned for that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Because I know I won't use examples of which ones, but there are others where you could be walking a prem along and all of a sudden someone's backing a truck in.
Yep.
And that can be dangerous when you've got young ones with you.
Yeah, I might even add on that as well. The previous preliminary approval was it was not considered at all from a segregation of truck delivery and pedestrian flow. One thing we pride ourselves is in trying to convince tenants to completely separate, where possible, that delineation of truck delivery and pedestrian flow, because we want safety and access, and being able to come to these centres with your family is quite important. So you'll notice a lot of the loading areas have now been pushed to the rear to allow for that.
Okay. A question for Sarah before I go to Councillor Wagner. I was on the council that adopted the South Kirkwood Road Structure Plan, which made this happen, which then we gave the preliminary approval. This is exactly what we want for this site. The intention of what we needed for this site. Where is the preliminary? Does it need an extension or anything like that? It's still live? Where are we at?
As part of the other change application that will be lodged, there'll be an extension request that goes in with that.
So the change application will have a extension request. And how long are you asking for an extension for?
How long did you guys request?
Oh, can you get back to me on that one if you don't know?
It is still live currently. I think it has another 18 months to go. I think our extension, and please don't hold me to this, was 5 years we're requesting.
That gives the team enough time to finalise all their subsequent approvals, including any MCU of works building required to deliver.
I love that you're here, and I believe from what you showed me that you do deliver. I like to finally see this happen. So extensions for 5 more years is not something I'm excited about, but at least it looks like you're on the ground, you're keen to get moving, and based on what you've done in Bathurst and other places, I believe that you'll.
If I can talk to that,
deliver.
about the extension, that's purely to allow us to. It might sound ironic, but to allow us to make sure that we can start earlier.
Yeah.
From a planning perspective in terms of vegetation removals and operational works, purely because of the way that we've cut up the staging of the job.
Yeah.
So that's actually even though I know
Yeah.
where you're coming from, the intent is to give us full leverage to make sure that we can start earlier
Yeah.
based on the way that we've structured our planning application.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And timing-wise, just for approvals, just an impact assessable application, which is what this other change will be, takes at least 6 months to process if we fast-track that. And then operational works is another 3 to 4 months assessment process time with the planning department. And building is much quicker, obviously, the building application process. But for each stage, for each building, they will have to go through that process. This is a prelim approval and it gives the higher order land use rights, but you still have to go through the MCU and operational works process for each individual tenant. So just keep that in mind when you're considering.
Yeah.
Cadre can work as fast as possible, but we still are hamstrung by legislative timeframes.
Yeah. And the preliminary approval, for anyone who lives anywhere nearby, would know that that was what the site was meant to be. So an MCU would possibly be a little bit easier, but interesting to see what you have in terms of your car parking numbers and your green space and your connectivity. That'll all come through a planning report, which I look forward to reading. Councillor Wagner.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the presentation as well. Got a couple of questions. I'll give Mayor that
in terms of the 5 years, it'd have to be a fairly compelling argument for me because this has been around for a long time. So I'm just going to put that out there. In terms of this, that access, does that access Kirkwood Road direct or does it access a road that comes off Kirkwood Road?
Access Kirkwood Road directly. So
That's,
probably, the cursor there. That's straight onto Kirkwood Road.
that's Kirkwood Road here.
Yeah.
And
You probably don't have some context based on
This
that.
is on the western side of Kirkwood Road, isn't it?
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, across the road of Kirkwood, existing Woolies.
It falls away fairly harshly in there, so does
Yep.
that all fill?
Correct.
There's a large cut and fill exercise
Yeah.
which we've methodically
Yeah.
worked through with.
You'll see.
It drops 4 metres.
Yep.
Yep.
A couple of other questions. I'm glad that you've been looking at the water through there. With the Kirkwood development of the houses near the shopping centre behind them, there's a hell of a lot more water going down Police Creek or Auckland Creek. So I'm wondering where the water, I mean, obviously with this much land being covered by roads and what have you, there's
Yep.
going to be more runoff.
Yep.
I'll be keen to see in the report where that is going to go because there's a lot of flooding now happening downstream that wasn't previously.
I can talk to that.
Can
Well,
we-
I can tell you
can we
right
touch
now,
on
yeah.
that now?
So
Yeah.
we've got I couldn't show the civil plans right now, but Nick's got his cursor there. We've actually got quite a large bioretention system right behind those two boxes there to deal with that flood overlay in that particular area. And then
How
also,
big, how much
we've got-
capacity?
It's capacity. I think we've got. Geez, I wouldn't be able to tell you right
Why
now.
don't-
No,
yeah,
I'll come
it's-
back
it's
to you.
large.
Yeah, it's
It
large.
is.
And that's
yeah,
just
yeah,
purely for stage one.
Yeah.
That's not for the entirety of the development.
Okay. Because there's a lot of hills around. You do get a lot of runoff. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
the creek that goes through there's a little bit of a primitive, it's not a bridge, but soil that goes over it, and every time it runs there, it just gets washed out completely. So, and I've seen how high the water gets through there. Like it is massive. It comes down there. So that's something that I'll be really keen. I'm glad that you've
Yep.
got the detention, whatever the basin, whatever you want to
Bioretention,
call it.
Yeah.
There for that. I'm also, I was at a shopping centre in Brisbane some time ago, and a lot of these developments, which are wonderful, they have one access in and out. But if you do get something that's congesting the road in front or blocking it or what have you, I don't know, I'd like to see some sort of, whether it's a temporary access or something, so you can get people out if you need to.
Yep.
So I'm not seeing that on that particular stage, but I think that is, I mean, it can be just one lane, but as long as people can get out, if there's some sort of,
Yeah.
I think any of us can talk to that. So the intention of this so the current render is only showing stage one. Long term, there's a connectivity road running all the way through, which then goes through stages 2 and 3, and there will be a secondary entry exit off Kirkwood. So there's a thorough road. So which is called Forest Springs Drive. So you'll have Weagle Road at one end and then Forest Springs Drive at the other. So to your point, if there ever is congestion, there's two main road.
So that second stage, how many years away is that? Like, how long will this stage be sitting there with that vulnerability before a second stage is developed?
Yeah, look, that's an economic question. We've done so much work in the background right now, and although we're asking for an extension, we're pretty much ready to go, subject to approvals. So stage one, and our track record, I think, speaks to itself. We don't sit around on land. We never have. We roll our sleeves up and we try to get things done as fast as possible. That's always been our mentality. But at the same time, we need to make sure we find that fine balance of tenant demand stage one, which I think we've done, which naturally allows for it to keep going.
I understand that, but I'm suggesting perhaps don't put some trees in there. If people need to get out, they can drive across your grass. But all I'm saying is it is like we've got to be looking at these risks. So I'm looking at the vegetation around it. It is a very big high fire risk in that area, as you would know by the vegetation in there. It is hilly. So there is that risk if there's fire and what have you that, there's a congestion or something like that. So I'm just putting that out there because I love what you've done, don't get me wrong, but this still is in an area where there are residences not far away. And obviously with the growth of Gladstone, there'll be more there in the future as well. I'm just wondering too, in terms of the biodiversity, have you done the research on koalas and things like that in that area? Okay, and what did you find?
So basically, pardon?
There are koalas over there.
Yeah, no, we're obviously there's an existing EPBC approval. There's an existing EPBC approval in place, which we've talked through, but we did a rehash of that through our ecological assessment and also bushfire assessment as well, to what you mentioned before.
Oh, yeah.
So we've obviously got to go through a thorough management process and plan to make sure that we're dealing with that through our vegetation removal, obviously under the EPBC approval and obviously council requirements as well. So that's all stepped out and thought through very carefully. And again, we've really tried to marry into what's already been approved there to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel in terms of processes and what's approved and doing it the right way.
Yeah.
I want to see this koala if you find it.
There's koalas up there. I've seen a koala up there when I've been riding. I ride up through there, so I'm pretty familiar with it.
We also, with the environmental, with that we did an analysis on the bushfire. So we did a bushfire management plan assessment, and we've really talked to the BAL ratings. I mean, a great example of that is we've actually got a setback there where Nick's got his cursor, where we're proposing to implement this childcare. We've really thought through the setbacks and the BAL ratings for all the bushfire and greenery behind the site there to make sure it's considered of the tenant uses, but then also of safety. So that's you'll see that in our reporting.
Yeah. No, that's all my questions, and great. I mean, I love the plan. Well done, you guys. So they're just a few of the things. The flood or where the water's going to go is a big thing for me.
Something that wasn't considered in the original approval, but we're making sure we're addressing this one. Yeah.
Because I'm just saying it's no use channeling it down into Auckland Creek and thinking that it's not going to impact downstream.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Great.
Just
great
for
job.
your benefit, Councillor Wagner, every development that goes through Gladstone or the state is required to make sure there's no worsening from a stormwater perspective, and that's where those detention basins come in. They're sized appropriately to manage any overland flow that might occur from all the increase in impervious area. Additionally, Council has recently reviewed their flood study in this area, I believe, and it's online, and I've had a comparison between the mapped Q100 in the planning scheme mapping versus this new flood study, and it's actually reduced the extent of flooding on this site, which that's Council's recent mapping.
I know that's Council's recent mapping, but those who live there would probably argue differently. Definitely. But they have a detention. I know that you guys, I mean, you're looking like you're doing a great job. You're professional. You've got the experience. That's great. And so did our developers of the resident. They've got a detention basin in theirs, and I reckon it's about the size of half an Olympic swimming pool, or not even that. And it certainly still filters down and doesn't really probably capture us. I don't think there used to be a dam in the back there though, so it is a catchment area. But look, I look forward to seeing it, and fantastic job. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a few councillors lining up. In terms of the flood studies, I guess, they've been updated, even though they've been reduced based on real data rather than someone in Brisbane saying this is what it is. So we've had a lot of floods recently and used that data to update our flood mapping. So I would assume and I would hope that they're actually more accurate, even though they may have seemed to be reduced. It's because it was unreasonable, which is some of the things we've seen down in Agnes Water and other parts in the place of our community as well, where someone in Brisbane might do an overlay and say, well, this is where it's going to flood, when we know based on local evidence it's not necessarily the case. I'm hoping that's what's happening with Auckland Creek. I'm sure it is. I've got Councillor Churchill, Holzheimer, then Davis. There's a lot of interest in this deputation.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for that, Mayor Matt. Thanks, Nick, Jared and Sarah. This is quite exciting. It's been a long time coming. And please, my circumstances don't allow me to be there in person today, but good to see your smiling face again, Sarah. I think Mayor Matt and Councillor Wagner have covered some of my questions, but I'd like to make one of the pertinent ones now. And you mentioned where to from here. You said that you're ready to go. So obviously you've got a financial investment decision made. But I'd like to ask the question, and perhaps through you, and then maybe through to Madam CEO, because you've made reference to the previous preliminary approval, be it that would have been probably 8 to 10 years ago. And in the change, we've seen a greater amount of traffic on Kirkwood Road, including very large trucks, and a lot more movement of children, be it. So with your proposed change application, my two questions are, will you be required to undertake new impact statements or impact assessments, traffic impact, environmental impact? Councillor Wagner made reference to koalas, and I've hiked through that part of the country a fair bit, and there's no shortage of snakes and spiders as well. But all that aside, will you be required to undertake an environmental impact as well? What's your anticipated timeline? I heard 6 months, I heard 3 months, and I'm not sure whether you can share it, but have you got any anchor tenants that are, because there's been a lot of conjecture in our community, because well, you've got Woolworths across the road, and Coles had made application previously for another site which is on the eastern side. So I'd just like to get an understanding, and will the final decision, and Sarah, you made reference to the Queensland government and obviously local government, will this find its way back into the boardroom for our final decision? And that may be a question to perhaps Madam CEO. So I've covered a few things there. One is, are you going to do these extra impact statements now above the preliminary approval? What's your anticipated timelines? You've mentioned 9 months. Have you got an anchor tenant? And will it find its way back into our boardroom again? Because the community will want to make sure that whatever decision we make is going to be in the best interests of the future growth and development of Gladstone and the region.
Thanks for your questions, Glenn. I'll start off with supporting reports. Yes, we have had to do refreshed impact reports, which you guys will see in the submission. So if you need anything further, as always, RFI the team, and we can prepare more reports. But we have also had planning lawyers in top of Sarah and Human Habitat go through our entire report and make sure everything is fully conforming and should be satisfactory for council, to try and make your jobs easier and also make sure we're covering off everything. Then I'll come back down. Yes, we do have anchor tenants lined up. Of this stage one that we are looking at, we currently have it about 70% pre-committed interest on the site. I haven't been able to sign legal leases with them yet, obviously because we haven't obtained our revised town planning approval. However, they're ready to go. I can't, given we're public and live on record today, I can't mention the tenants' names. However, I'm more than welcome in a confidential room or email to share you who those tenants are. I'd like to touch on as well your mention of Coles applied in the past. I'd like to refresh everyone's memory that when that application went through on Coles, that was applied on residential zoned land. This is not residential zoned land, this is commercial zoned land, so it's very different applications. I'm not saying we have Coles, but I just want everyone to be aware that a commercial development here is very different to across the road at Kirkwood where that Coles was rejected. Then I'll let Sarah talk to the remaining points.
Thank you.
In terms of assessment timeframes, Glenn, and I'm facing the wrong way. So another change application process will take about 6 months to assess, hopefully quicker. We believe we've been quite thorough in our application material, but as always, council may have additional questions. And then we have to go through a public notification process as well. So if any submissions are received during that time, your planning department will consider them and most likely bring any decision to the boardroom for decision making.
And ultimately,
Thank you, Sarah.
Ultimately, it's
Thank
an impact assessment of application, so it'll come here for decision. That was what you were going to say, yeah. Councillor Holsworth.
It's quite obvious that cadre get good things done. Thank you for that.
Councillor Holsworth.
I think Councillor Churchill actually took a heap of my questions and was thinking
sorry.
similar to you're forgiven. So thank you for all the work. This looks like you've done a lot of work and really thoughtful process behind presenting this to us today and lodging your application this week. Soon. I'll take a time frame back. Sorry, no pressure. And Simon's adjusting everything for me. Thanks, Simon. So when's your desired or hoped time frame based on all of the approvals to actually start turning dirt and then to be opening the facilities to members within the community? The next part of my question is, I know you can't actually tell us who you have had those conversations with, but what do you actually see in the different stages as our community's greatest need for that space? And how did you come up with what the needs for the community are within that space as well?
Timing-wise, obviously, it's all subject to approval. Once approval is obtained, we anticipate to be turning dirt within 6 to 12 months from approval. As I said, we've got the tenants lined up. We've got senior financiers already supporting us on this project. It's a matter of just, like, as we all, the process that follows. So the lead time that we can get on approval will determine our timeline, really. And then how we came to, so what we really tried to do was work with the preliminary approval as much as possible. The amendments that we're putting in is to cater for those national tenants' demand and use and layouts. So once this is approved, we're ready to sign agreements with them and get going. How we got to that, it was a two-staged process. Given our national relationships, we are constantly fed network plans from them all, and we knew Gladstone would kept coming up. That's when we flew up, and then from there we started working with economic consultants. So, and you'll see that in the report, he's done 3 economic reports for you guys that you will see. His name is Justin Ganley, and he's from Deep End Economic. Deep End Economics. He identified key both needs and assessment. So he deep dives into what is currently at Gladstone, what is needed there, and how will, and he's also done an impact assessment which you guys can go through. So we've done, I'd say, quite a meticulous thorough review of the underlying economic requirement here, and not just said, oh, I think that looks good, and let's hope it follows through.
Beautiful, thank you. And I hope to see you guys back in this room in the future to update us in regards to your progress, and reach out if you need any support or just to connect with us as well as councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holsheimer. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. And I think most of the other councillors have answered or asked my question, so a lot's been answered. And I just want to thank you guys, because by listening to all this, I think you have been very thorough in what you have done. My quick question was, when you do turn soil, is the amount of local workforce going to be sort of considered? And that's, just like, or do you have your own workforce that comes in, or will you be using local?
Absolutely. We to give you an example, we met with about 6 months ago, we met with Simmons Civils, and we were talking to them, but obviously the intention is to bring work to the community here and really leverage off the great industry that's already here. It just makes sense, that would be our first port of call in terms of procurement from our perspective.
You. My other question was, do you guys keep these developments in-house, or do you sell them off down the track like these?
It's a combination. We try, and that's hence why we've partnered up with Argus Partners, based out of Sydney, to give financial stability for, being able to follow through and actually deliver and hopefully hold the majority of this. At this point in time, we don't know how much or what we will hold. At the end, when all is said and done, it will be a large facility. So I can't tell you how much we will hold. We definitely anticipate on holding some, but we might sell some parts down to, but they would always be tried, tested, institutional holders.
Okay, thank you. And the other one, is there anything that needs to complement this in town, like that you'd be looking in other areas for, like storage for these type of things?
Great question. There's always a flow on by having more retailers in town. There's always supplementary DCs and warehousing and showrooms that's needed. So the flow on effect, both from a local employment perspective, but then also further, what we find is industrial uses that typically support it, generally follows.
Excellent. Thank you.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Great presentation, guys. Thanks very much. And it's very impressive looking buildings you've got there. And I was surprised that is stage one that we're looking at. Because when I was looking at staging, I was thinking, well, how the hell are they going to stage that? That's it. So if there's 2 other stages to go to that, what's the size of those in proportion to what we're looking at here? And what's the total footprint of the land that you've got to use?
So this site runs from Wiggle Road down to Forest Springs West, and it's 44,000 square metres of retail space is what's approved under the current prelim. Mm-hmm. So stage 1 is about 23,000? Around 23,000, so it's half of the entire approval.
Okay. Yeah. So I would imagine the impetus to go to the further stages would be the success of stage 1, obviously. If for whatever economic reasons it was not viable to go with the other 2 stages, what would you do with that land?
So it's currently subject to this prelim approval. There's also the underlying residential subdivision that was done by Walker's Estate, Forest Springs. So there is a possibility at some point that could happen, but this is retail commercial space, and it is the only site within the planning scheme that's earmarked for the delivery of this type of development. I think Cadre would be remiss to dedicate it to anything other than this development.
Mm. Yeah, doesn't really answer me really, but yeah. No, look, I look forward to see it progress, and hopefully stage 2 and 3 progress quickly with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor McClintock.
Happy to move the deputation be received.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And a second, Councillor Cameron. Before I put the motion, I still have something I want to say. It's not so much a question, and it's, well, I guess you're obviously taking into consideration that Kirkwood Road will be 4 lanes when you put your application in. I wanted to consider one thing, and it doesn't affect your planning application regardless. But when these big new centres come to town and they bring national brands with them, which we all love to see, and I see and I'm not suggesting that these are them, and I'm not looking for any inkling from you, so I won't look at you when I say it. But some of the earlier sites have things like Anaconda and it looks like a JB Hi-Fi, which are all companies which my local community, or our local community, have been excited about for a long time. You often read it on Facebook. When's council building a JB Hi-Fi? And we don't build a JB Hi-Fi or an Anaconda for that matter. But I would like, if it's not too late in your discussions with people, for you to at least take into consideration that we have a Gladstone Hi-Fi and we have a Gladstone Camping World, and if you're looking for tenants for their opposition on a national scale, that you would at least have a conversation with our local businesses about potentially being the franchisee or the operator of that. Totally nothing to do with town planning, as my town planners are over there saying you can't say that. I can say what I like. And it won't be taken into consideration with your planning application, but I saw when Bunnings come to town, God bless them, we lost a number of hardware stores and we lost a garden centre as well. And if we're going to lose businesses because this is a fantastic facility that our community is calling out for, that our town plan sets aside for, which as our vision has our town plan to happen, I'd like to at least make sure that we're considering the people who have invested in our community for decades or potentially generations that aren't left out in the lurch by new big national companies coming to town. So if you could take that into consideration, that'll be lovely. Can I have a mover and a seconder? The deputation be received. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. And thank you so much for your deputation. Look forward to reading your application.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. All right, councillors. We've got a few more items to get through this morning. Councillor Patrick will be back in the room. Well, when I say back in the room, back online, we'll move to the next item when she is back on. Thank you, Councillor Patrick. We'll move to the next item of councillors, which is G4.1, consideration for a development application DA1/2025, material change of use, rooming accommodation, reconfiguring a lot, boundary realignment and access easement. I'll hand over to the General Manager of Customer Experience, Kimberly Wilson, and welcome Tegan McDonald to the table.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Morning, councillors. As indicated this morning, we want to present this report for the development application of material change of use and rooming accommodation and reconfiguring a lot and boundary realignment and access easement. It's a mouthful. The development application applies to 133 Oka Lane and 200 Gundun Street. The assessment was conducted against the relevant provisions of the state planning policy, and after an assessment of the proposal against the scheme, it is considered that the proposal is generally consistent with the strategic framework. It is therefore recommended that development application for material change of use from rooming accommodation and the rest of the mouthful at 133 Oak Lane and 200 Gundun Street be approved subject to reasonable and relevant conditions. I'll consider it read and open for questions.
Thank you. Councillor Holsam, a question?
I'm really excited because from meeting with our GRT roundtable and some conversations, this is exactly what the centre and the CBD of Gladstone needs, developments like this. However, I know that you said that there would be relevant considerations with the application. Does that actually respond to the neighbours' concerns as well, because they're talking about impacts to views? I would really just like to know, what is rooming accommodation? Like, what does that even mean? How do we have like noise impacts and current infrastructure? Because that seems to be the general concern from the neighbours, from what they have asked as well.
Thank you, Councillor. I think the easiest way to explain what rooming accommodation is it's
long-term residential accommodation, so multiple units, but there's shared facilities. So in this instance, you will see in some of the figures, you can see the internal layouts. They're essentially mostly self-contained single-bedroom units. They share laundry facilities. So it's not for motel short-term accommodation. It's generally not a high turnover of occupants. It's long-term accommodation. That is, you could probably put in the context of it's more affordable. It's not actual affordable accommodation as per, strict definitions, but it will be more affordable as a price point. This one does have a manager's residence at the front as well, so that is a full self-contained dwelling unit in itself. But from a noise consideration, there is conditions on there about our general, meet the noise limits, but we wouldn't expect in and of itself it to be a noisy use. It's a long-term residential use predominantly.
So it would be like anywhere else they could go and speak to the manager to manage those issues anyway and respond to that
like any other large unit development.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful, thank you.
That's fine.
Councillor McClintock, then Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. Just reading through about page 21, I think it makes mention of it, that the low medium rise form is, low medium density residential zone is defined by buildings of 2 stories and 8.5 metres in height. I mean, for all intents and purposes, again, I agree with Councillor Holsheimer. This is meeting some really identified needs within our community. We do need better and more available housing, particularly for this type of housing, and it's in the right spot. I think it's the right place for these sort of things to do to activate our CBD and those sort of things. So I'm not necessarily against it. I'm just curious about how it sits in 2-storey when it's, for all intents and purposes, is 3 stories tall.
Yep.
And how do we ensure, probably my question from that is there precedent for that being done in that zoning already? And what precedent does it set, if not, for going forwards that we would exceed that?
Yep, so I think what's most important to note is that this building is still within the 8.5 metre max. So from a stories perspective, yes, it is an additional story, but it still meets the maximum height. So conceptually, you could have a building of the same bulk with bigger, stories, and it still would be the same, very similar built form, particularly because the first story of this is open car parking.
Yeah.
The trigger point too is that this development would have been code accessible if it was 2 stories. So becoming 3 stories is what bumped them up to impact, which then had that public notification component, and is why it's with you guys in the boardroom today. So I guess the consequence of them not complying with that is that it has a higher assessment level. That's the acceptable outcome. The performance outcome, which is mentioned in that same table on page 21, talks about that buildings are still a low medium rise. And when you have a look at that infographic within that table, you can see in the context of the existing character, and particularly in the height context, it is very, very consistent with that. The fact that it's not over that 8.5 max height is really one of those key decisions, or key points in making that decision.
And I guess I agree with that, and I don't probably have concern too much with this particular building on that front. It has met that requirement. Probably in my brain, I went to another place where someone says, well, there's already a 3-story and all we're doing is exceeding the 8.5.
Yep.
So how does that escalate to a point where, is the 8.5 a non-negotiable but the stories seem to be, or? No,
both of them are technically negotiable, and that's the beautiful thing about planning, that there is really no such thing as precedent. Each application's assessed on its own merits. So in this specific context, this building is acceptable. This exact same building further down the street may not have been acceptable. So it's a case-by-case basis, essentially. So there's not that much risk involved in approving something that is technically 3 stories, in that then we've opened the gate for higher and higher heights. That provision, that 2 stories and 8.5, sits on any of those zoned properties, and we make a decision on that particular application at that time in that context for that site.
That gives me great comfort. My other question is, obviously this development requires an easement through the property behind. That easement, to me, is critical, obviously, and to our planning, to the entire thing being functional. Is that a requirement to have done before the development application is? I couldn't quite articulate that.
And that is fair enough. It is a bit complex in that this is as Kimberly said at the start, there is many pieces to this approval. So ultimately, there's a realignment of the boundaries between what is on the front lot to Gundoon Street and the Ochre Lane lot. So that boundary where the dwelling is at the moment will get pushed right up to where the dwelling house is. That can happen at any time. So the way we've structured the approval is that that realignment component without the easement can happen first if that's what they choose, and it actually needs to happen first because that back lot won't be big enough unless that realignment happens. The easement component is a requirement of the MCU, the rooming accommodation. So the rooming accommodation won't be able to be lawfully used until that easement's in place. So there's a sequencing of that development, and we've structured the conditions as such.
Yeah, beautiful. No, that was more my concern, that timing factor of how that all
no,
happens.
it is complicated.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you very much.
I've got a couple of Davis, Patrick, and then Wagner, but I just want to follow on from that. So they can build, but can't operate unless they have their easement.
Correct. Because the easement, so the access provision for this setup is that it's in from Gundoon Street and out from Ochre. So without that easement to allow that lawful access, it fundamentally does not work. They cannot get that access.
Yeah, exactly. So why wouldn't they have to get the easement before they started construction?
Because the construction component, it doesn't hinge on that access. So the construction traffic can come in and out that one way. It's when it's operating, that's the trigger point. That's really when it's integral.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I just don't want it built and then go, oh, we can't get our easement.
And the easement condition
the
prevents
miserable
them
council
from
in a
doing
housing crisis won't let us move in. I can hear it.
It's a condition of their approval.
That was precisely my concern. I guess probably further to that is play out that scenario. What do we have as far as rights to, if someone did build, didn't get the easement, and I'm not suggesting this is what they intend to do by any means whatsoever, but more for context, what then can we do if they start using it? Are there procedures in place to ensure that has to happen before it's lawfully used? Because there's a lot of people doing not lawful things. That doesn't
true,
really
yes.
restrict people that much.
So generally with prior to commencement of use conditions, a building certifier is obliged to not release their certificate of classification, their final certificate, until they've complied with those other conditions. Ideally, even if that does happen, then we have provisions under our planning legislation to commence compliance action. So it's same as paying your infrastructure charges, having all your landscaping in place, having your driveway sealed, all of those conditions are bundled into that same prior to commencement. There's a lot of checks to happen. There's also conditions at the very end of this that talk about prior to their lawful commencement of use, they need to get consent from council, i.e. a planning final, which isn't an official term, but consent from council to say, yes, you've complied with your conditions, you are now welcome to lawfully commence your use.
Okay. Right, I'm with you on that because there's never been, I don't know, let's say a shopping centre anywhere that's open without their planning approvals before.
No.
Never. Okay, I'm worried about that. But it doesn't work, as Councillor Wagner says, without that easement. So
yes.
I'm assuming I thought they must own the land, but...
At the moment, both lots are owned by the same person.
So it shouldn't be a problem, yeah. Right, Councillor Davis, and then Patrick Wagner. And then
Thank you.
Cameron.
And yes, I have read through the report and I agree that the concerns, but I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation because it is only an MCU at this stage, correct? Yeah. And also I have read through the submissions and I understand the residents' concerns, but unfortunately, a lot of us buy in places and then development happens and we can't foresee that. So, and there was 2 submissions. So I'm happy to move.
Thank you. I've got questions, but I'll get a seconder for that now. Thank you, Councillor Holzheimer. And then I've got questions from Councillor Patrick Wagner and Cameron.
Thank you, Mayor Matt. Sorry. Just a really quick question. Considering that the proposed building is 3 stories high, I'm just wanting to ensure that this building is in line or is in line with accessibility and inclusivity framework and the building code. When you're starting to get up into those levels, it does concern me because we are wanting to be consistent throughout our region with this. So can you give me some comfort and some explanation with regards to that?
Yep. So The first thing is that the planning scheme in and of itself doesn't regulate the disability access requirements. That's the building code. So for this classification of building, for them to get their building approval and certification, they have to meet those relevant disability access requirements. So that is built into the system. This particular design does have an accessible unit at the ground floor to meet that requirement. So yes, you're correct, in the upper levels there is not an elevator, it is stair access, but they do have a room at the bottom to meet their DDA compliance from a building code perspective, which is
Wonderful.
which meets the requirements as they stand. Yeah.
And in your opinion, in your professional opinion, like I've noted that there are lots of or considerable conditions being applied. Do you feel that these are within our normal parameters of conditions and that they will be able to fulfil those conditions?
Yes, in my professional opinion, that is certainly pretty standard condition package, considering there's multiple elements to this approval. So there is, it's quite bulky in conditions, but there is separate conditions for each sort of piece. That said, the applicant has the ability to do the negotiated period. So if they do have particular concerns about the workability of any of those conditions, there is that ability to negotiate that with council post-decision. Typically, that wouldn't even come back to the boardroom unless it was something of a particular, importance. So there is a provision already built in for that to happen, free of charge, I suppose I should say.
Yeah, okay, that's great, because I don't want to have all these conditions and it doesn't have the ability to be able to be built when we're actually in need of this type of facility and project. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wagner.
Yeah, thank you for that. I actually like this particular development. I do understand there's neighbours, with some concerns there, and I mean, it is in the middle of the town. It's probably the area for me that probably should be developed, while I do empathise with those other people. I'm just wondering, can you just tell me again, what sort of tenants will be in rooming accommodation?
Well, again, it's hard to say because we don't regulate the tenants, but it's long-term, usually rental accommodation. So my understanding is from pre-lodgement discussions with this particular operator, it would be hospitality industry or service industry type occupants. We can't restrict who stays there, so it could be, ultimately anybody.
Okay. But they are
provided it's
long-term, they're not just
It's
coming
not like
and
a
going.
motel or, short-term accommodation or even holiday accommodation. It's long-term, permanent residential.
And with this one here, you said there aren't any lifts and there's stairs.
Correct.
I mean, it still concerns me a little bit because it would be lovely to have some more access for people who, even older people and what have you, because if you're going up 3 stories, that's a fair few steps to fall down. But I'm just wondering, in terms of those stairs, what about access in the event of fire?
Yep, so again, the fire provisions aren't a planning scheme provision assessment. The fire provisions become at the building code perspective. So when the architect has designed this, they have to meet those requirements as part of getting those codes. Now, this classification of building is a little bit different to a standard residential building, so there is additional requirements from a fire and access perspective because it is that rooming accommodation style, which is different to sort of a self-contained permanent residential style.
Yeah, I know. We just don't want another Childers type situation, do we? I'm thinking too, what I liked about this is there's more car parks than units, and I like that because I think any of our development should have at least, well, preferably 2 car parks on site rather than in the street, particularly in this area of the city. That access in and out, do you see any, one of them is quite a congested area, so I'm just wondering, do we see any real issues with the access in and out and the number of new tenants that will be going there and the impacts also on the neighbours?
Yep, so as part of this application, they had to do a traffic impact assessment.
Okay.
And particularly because of the one-way nature of that, and from an engineering perspective, that all meets the requirements. So Ochre Lane and Gundoon Street can cater to that amount of traffic. The accesses and literally the driveways meet our standards for that type of number of vehicle movements and the kind of vehicle movements, so it all meets our requirements.
I did see something interesting in the report about, there was something about the flight path or something like that, which I thought was really interesting in that location because I'm not sure how many planes go over the middle of the city. But I am curious, like, if we're looking at having development in the city and we're restricting it to 8.5, I mean, obviously, if you let them go up, we're obviously getting more people on, you know, I suppose a more concentrated mass in the city. So why have we limited in certain areas? Why is it because it's in the flight path? No,
No,
I don't know.
no.
It's not.
Definitely not.
So I think probably for best context, when you think about the Gundoon Street CBD, like where we are right now, it's principal centre. So you can go 20 plus metres, you can go a significant height. And essentially then the planning scheme provision sort of steps down as you go away from as a side street, and also steps down as you go further down Gundoon Street. So the height provisions are not all 8.5 in this CBD area. They're actually quite significant here in the main CBD, and then slowly step down as you go further on.
So wouldn't we consider that now, like if you're looking at the growth and development planning, and we're looking at new schemes or whatever, adapting it, wouldn't you see that as a logical growth? Because in the town here, there's a lot of shops and what have you where you can't develop them. I'd like to see us really look at that.
Yeah, and in our planning scheme amendment considerations, that's certainly something we look at, because it goes hand in hand, as you said, with density and increasing density. And when you look at, you know, housing affordability and availability, the key piece that's missing is units, and that sort of this sort of product is close to city central. So that's certainly something that we will look at in more detail when we're talking holistic planning scheme amendments.
I mean, I'm mindful of the neighbours, but I'm thinking if we've got that concentration starting to happen in the city, that's probably a positive thing for the city too, and having numbers here and maybe looking at activating our CBD more. Thank you.
That's worries.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I had a good look at this actually, and it's a pretty snappy little design, this, and it was at Fab Ideas. They did a fab job. I can't see many problems with this at all. The easement, that will happen. I did take the opportunity to do a couple of drive past the sites to see how that all works out relative to the concerns with the loss of view. And yes, there is, but it's not total. I mean, everything to the south is quite open, and then a little bit of mess to the north. But the house directly on the side there only had 3 little windows, and it's got opaque glass in it anyway, so I can't see what the big deal was. But apart from the fact that they are impacted, and I can really relate to that because that actually happened to me, where I had a lovely little house with big mango trees next to me, and now I've got a concrete jungle with 15 units on it. That's life, that's just the way it happens. But no, I think all things being equal, I think this is a good design. They've done a great job, and I'm sure the planning department will make sure that they get conditioned appropriately along the way, and quite happy to support the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Move Councillor Davis, seconded Councillor Holzheimer. Is that still correct? Yes. All in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. G 4.2. Oh. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Tegan. Tender 95-25, Design and Construct Calliope Wastewater Treatment Plant, Inlet Works and Aeration Sludge Handling Upgrade. General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk. Thank you, Mark Holmes.
Morning, Mayor and Councillors. This morning I'll be joined by our Manager of Contracts. Morning, Mayor and Councillors. This morning to discuss the tender for the Calliope Wastewater Treatment Plant Inlet Works. We've got our Manager of Contracts Procurement, Kiara Henderson, and we've got Sarah Barlow, our Contract Specialist, here to work through any questions you may have. So with respect to this tender, so we've identified the need to undertake these inlet works once we've essentially identified some deficiencies. So we've gone through and planned those works, and this work is part of your 25-26 budget. So we've gone to the market with respect to this and have received 6 submissions. The tender panel consisting of project managers and engineers from within the business have assessed those responses, and the assessment of that has resulted in Silverstrand being ranked as the preferred tenderer. So take the report as read and open it to questions.
On page 51 of the report, I noticed that it made a comment that there were shortfalls identified during the technical evaluation that were minor in nature. How do we manage those concerns that we've identified through the assessment throughout the project? And I suppose, what does that mean, minor, in your definition? Because I'm not somebody who comes from that background as well.
Probably happy to hand that over to Fabian, our project manager. But Fabian, just
thank you. We'll just get you to the table, please.
But essentially, when we identify essentially some areas we've got to focus on during the project, it just becomes an area of focus for our project manager to make sure that we've appropriately mitigated them. So I'll hand over Fabian to discuss that.
Yeah, as the project manager, that's just a risk we have to manage during implementation. So if during the assessment we find that, there's some minor things missing, we may have asked for a specific site plan to say, show me where you're going to put your crib huts. Maybe they didn't provide that. So that's what we call something minor in nature that won't overall affect the project. But then it's just for the project manager to manage and say, righto, before you come to site, where are we going to put the site crib huts? How are we going to manage that? When we're talking minor, overall, it's just something that can just be managed prior to the contractor coming to site usually. And so we also have, the contractor will also have to supply management plans prior to mobilising. So we receive all their management plans post-award, we review them, find out any gaps that need to be filled, and then we get the contractor to implement them before they come.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, thank you. One other question. How long do we think this work might take, and what's the impact in regards to what that wastewater treatment plant is actually being used for at the moment? Do we divert that process? Like, how does that actually work practically for the impact within the community and also with normal business that we do?
Yeah, overall there won't be an impact to the community or the business. So we do divert the process when we're redoing the inlet works. We will divert that to allow the new one to be constructed and commissioned. So it'll roughly be business as usual with a few small operational changes to allow the process to continue while we do the works.
Excellent, thank you. That's me.
Thank you, Councillor McClintock. Question?
Thank you. I think this is great. My only question when I was going through it was this is a significant upgrade to the process that we're using currently. You can probably, I don't know how you answer this, but we're putting Band-Aids on broken things, or is this considered a good substantial upgrade to ensure that this facility is going to outwork for the future? And I know this is kind of, you don't know when things are going to break or what things are going to do in a holistic sense, but just at a higher level, are we confident that our existing infrastructure is at a level that this is what we need for the foreseeable future, or are we using old technology and there's better investments, I guess was what went through my head, as far as, is this going to bring us up to spec and we're confident that this is going to take us forwards? I don't even know who that question's to.
I can answer that. Yeah, definitely, this isn't a Band-Aid solution, what we're implementing. So, for example, the inlet works where all the waste comes in and is screened and has grit removed, that whole package, that unit is being replaced with a new package unit, which will use basically the latest technology, which will be part of the design component of the contractor's works. So it'll be brand new package unit for the inlet works. We'll have new aerators. We'll have a new sludge handling facility. So we're essentially replacing a lot of equipment, and obviously and reusing what we can and what we need to.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly replacing what needs to be. And the idea is this isn't a band-aid, because the band-aids have been put on for the in the past, and we've got to the point where we now need to replace. We're end of life of our assets.
And I guess that was the comfort I was looking for, was that this isn't just another bigger Band-Aid, but we're actually investing in that infrastructure, because I'd prefer to spend more if it means that we do it properly, than just keep putting these little fixes in place, because this is obviously a very crucial piece of infrastructure that causes a lot of drama if we don't have it working properly, not only to the ongoing usability of our community, but to our staff and those who are using that environment. I know there's been a lot of stuff going on in that space as far as band-aiding and trying to overcome little issues along the way. So yeah, great comfort to know that we're able to upgrade that properly. Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you. I've just got one small question. I know the contract is worth quite a substantial amount, and I see there on page 51, I think the local Silverstrand nominated local spend is just around, yeah. So it's only 458,000 odd there. Is there a percentage there we work on, or is specialised equipment? Can you just explain why it's not a lot sort of local spend? Is there anything there that you can sort of clarify?
Most of the equipment most of the cost is in the equipment, and the equipment just isn't manufactured locally. We just don't have the facilities here.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to double check.
Some of it does have to come from overseas, to use the best technology and the most up to date.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions, councillors? No online. Excellent. Was moved Councillor Wagner and seconded Councillor Cameron. All in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thanks to team. We'll move to 4.3, which is specialised supplier Kim Seed Australia Pty Ltd Zigzag Aspirator. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is for you to consider Kim Seed Australia Proprietary Limited as a specialised supplier for a zigzag operator at our Tondoon Botanic Garden. I've learned a lot through this report process, including what a zigzag aspirator actually performs. This truly is, and to me, fits the bill of what a specialised supplier is. It is a specialised piece of equipment. It is only used in the Botanic Gardens industry, and this machine will help in the efficiency in the operation of the Botanic Gardens in terms of how it runs through its seed process and how it helps regenerate our gardens.
And welcome Joel to the table as well.
Joel to the table,
Councillor McClintock, do you have a question? Zigzag.
I was going to make the same comment, Mark. There's certain reports that you read through that your eyes are open to things that you didn't know existed. A zigzag something or other was one of those things where I learnt a lot through the process of this report. So I thank you for including enough context for me to understand that process. I have spent a fair bit of time out at the Tondoon Gardens and with the team out there and in varying capacities. Very, very confident that team out there are very intentional about the way they do their role and the tasks that they take on. So I'm happy to move that this be okay, basically. Because I think
happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Yeah,
is that what you meant
meant
to say? Thank you, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it's exactly
Seconded by Councillor Churchill online, and I believe Councillor Patrick has a question.
Yeah, thank you. I kind of mirror Councillor McClintock's words about Tondoon. It's a really magnificent space that we have within our region. Just a couple of quick questions from me. How often would the team be using this type of machinery, and would specialised training be needed, and what short and long-term outputs could we expect from purchasing this equipment?
I can answer this one, Mark, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, councillors. Sorry I can't be in the room with you today. In answer to
Carly has the flu and she stayed home with it. If you were.
Yeah, I'm not at Tannum Beach, but my background looks beautiful. In answer to your question, Councillor Patrick, the zigzag aspirator is used quite often for business as usual, but also for seed banking. So one of the primary functions of a botanic garden is to conserve our flora for the future. So we do use it on site to have the best opportunity to plant clean and healthy seeds. But then also we have a herbarium, and we also do some seed banking where we share some of our seeds with other botanic gardens around Australia. So that zigzag aspirator provides us with the best opportunity to have clean and healthy seeds that can be propagated for the future. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think it just helps to clarify for everyone that we are investing in great equipment for a very precious asset that we have within our gardens.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Councillor McClintock, and if it goes backwards, it goes zag zig.
Oh, dear Lord. Okay, thank you. Move Councillor McClintock, seconded Councillor Churchill. We approve the purchase of the zigzagger. All in favour? Thank you, carried. G 4.4, what time is it? 10:30. I think we'll break for morning tea, and then we'll deal with 4.4 when we come back from morning tea.
I really like the variety because there's a lot of different parts of our region, and particularly in disaster space, I like that we're there for the community in kind of some of their worst times. We're able to assist. My role basically oversees and works with other emergency service agencies in town to assist the community in preparedness and then response and recovery following disaster events. I really enjoy working and living in Gladstone. We have great facilities here. People are really friendly. Council's a really good organisation to work for. Everyone's really committed to the community. I mean, we're already residents. We want to see what's best for the community happening. I do quite a few sports in town, so use a lot of our sporting facilities, as well as involved in the community theatre space, so getting to use the GECC, which we're really lucky to have. I do the community musicals, so we've done, I've been involved in Anything Goes, Legally Blonde, Carrie, and then also do foster caring through GPAWS, which is one of the animal rescue groups. Emma Catlin, Disaster Response Specialist for Gladstone Regional Council.
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
I really like the variety because there's a lot of different parts of our region, and particularly in disaster space, I like that we're there for the community in kind of some of their worst times. We're able to assist. My role basically oversees and works with other emergency service agencies in town to assist the community in preparedness and then response and recovery following disaster events. I really enjoy working and living in Gladstone. We have great facilities here. People are really friendly. Council's a really good organisation to work for. Everyone's really committed to the community. I mean, we're all residents. We want to see what's best for the community happening. I do quite a few sports in town, so use a lot of our sporting facilities, as well as involved in the community theatre space. So getting to use the GECC, which we're really lucky to have. I do the community musicals, so we've done, I've been involved in Anything Goes, Legally Blonde, Carrie, and then also do foster caring through GPAWS, which is one of the animal rescue groups. Emma Catlin, Disaster Response Specialist for Gladstone Regional Council.
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
I really like the variety because there's a lot of different parts of our region, and particularly in disaster space, I like that we're there for the community in kind of some of their worst times. We're able to assist. My role basically oversees and works with other emergency service agencies in town to assist the community in preparedness and then response and recovery following disaster events. I really enjoy working and living in Gladstone. We have great facilities here. People are really friendly. Council's a really good organisation to work for. Everyone's really committed to the community. I mean, we're all residents. We want to see what's best for the community happening. I do quite a few sports in town, so use a lot of our sporting facilities, as well as involved in the community theatre space. So getting to use the GECC, which we're really lucky to have. I do the community musicals, so we've done, I've been involved in Anything Goes, Legally Blonde, Carrie, and then also do foster caring through GPAWS, which is one of the animal rescue groups. Emma Catlin, Disaster Response Specialist for Gladstone Regional Council.
Well, welcome back to those watching online to our gallery, and thank you, councillors and officers. We'll move to the next agenda item, which is G4.4, which is the annual insurance renewals. And as I have a conflict of interest in this, I'll hand over to Councillor McClintock to take the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Matt. All right. We have G4.4 annual insurance renewals, and to present we have the General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk, Mark Holmes.
Thank you, Councillor. This item is for you to endorse the financial expenditure of our insurance renewal program through LGMS. So LGMS provide insurance for our mutual liability, mutual assets and mutual work care schemes, and essentially you've given the specialised supplier component of that. This is really just authorising the expenditure and renewal of those insurances for the year.
Thank you. Go to questions. Councillor Holsheimer.
I am comfortable with approving for the CEO to for approving the continuation and any participation with LGM scheme, and request that any update or changes in that coverage actually just come back to us even in one of our catch-ups, because I understand that was the recommendation for today. So happy to accept that motion.
You moving?
Move it. Accept it.
Moving the motion. We do have some other questions around the table, but happy to second, Councillor Cameron. Is that?
Yes, happy to second, Simon, thank you. But there's no alternatives to this for us, really, is there?
There's other insurers in the market.
Yeah, but nowhere near the capacity that they can offer us for that value of money.
Yeah. So the benefit of these schemes is a mutual scheme. So we share the risk across essentially almost all councils in Queensland, and I think bar one maybe are members of the LGMS scheme.
That's right. We do.
So essentially we share. But this is about risk sharing, and we've managed it.
Yeah, we do get a dividend at the end of the day.
Yes, that's a separate decision of LGAQ, so it's separate to this. Yeah.
Okay, and happy to second that.
Councillor Wagner, you had a question?
Yeah, no, I mean, I do support this. A couple of questions, though, and a comment. The comment is that I like the idea that we're getting the rebate because of our commitment to managing risk as well, so that is great. That's quite a significant amount that we're getting a rebate of. But in terms of the limit of indemnity, I see that we have, like, I think it's supposed to say casual hires liability, 10 million, 20 million automatic increase. What does that mean? That's on page 57?
Sorry, Councillor Wagner, I don't have the policy schedule right in front of me, but I'm happy to come back to you with that if you're happy for me to take that on notice.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. The other thing too, if we do have casual hirers liability of 10 million, when we're looking at things like employment practices, I'm suggesting 2 million doesn't seem like a lot, or cyber liability, 2 million. Some of the cases of cyber issues are huge.
With respect to cyber liability, that is the maximum amount available to us under the scheme. So potentially we could look to try and source secondary cover, which we do for some of our other policies, but...
I'd be keen to know what the other councillors think, because I know there's been cases now with cyber risk and the cost to an organisation this side with that many employees, and I'm suggesting 2 million doesn't seem like a lot, especially if you've got to come in and you've got to change systems, update, get specialist people in. If it's offshore, then you've got a whole new layer.
It is a very difficult thing to insure.
Yeah. Is it?
So at the moment you've got extended liability coverage with respect to officer indemnity, and that's due to the risks that we share as part of our region. So we can certainly approach those conversations with LGMS and see whether there is additional coverage that's available.
Well, I mean,
essentially, but what happens there is essentially you take it out as an additional policy.
Yeah, okay.
So we've got additional coverage there as part of our ordinary suite that comes through with respect to officer liability. We can ask the question. It may not be available, but we can ask that question with respect to cyber.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking, like, what happens if it's like a privacy and everyone's details are given out or something like that? Wouldn't we be subject to being sued, and the cost could be a lot more than that, I would think. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what... it's not my area of expertise, but it was just something that I noticed. And the other thing is, in the aggregate, what does that actually mean in all these?
That's total claims for the year.
Oh, okay. So, so say the councillors did something, $10 million in the aggregate, and there's 8 of us. That's not a lot either. Is that... I mean, I don't... Hey?
Behave yourself then.
Yeah, you get down there, Councillor McClintock. I don't know, but
so
yeah.
That, to be clear, that's $40 million in coverage you have there.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
so
okay.
So it's 10
then,
plus 30. So it's
when
10
Councillor
plus the additional
McClintock goes
30.
off on a tangent.
So that's yeah. So that you do got, but essentially still there.
Okay.
You know,
excellent. No, and I love the idea that we're in a collective of this, and obviously it does reduce our overall commitment. But I think the cyber one, we probably do need to look at that. That's just my comment. Thank you. I do support it.
I've got Councillor Patrick and Councillor Davis, but just before Councillor Holsheimer wanted to respond to you.
I think as well in regards to the cyber security space, when we recruited our new ARIC members, we actually, one of our new members is really strong in that space as well, and is supporting us with making sure we're all over all of that governance and all those practices in the background that we need to be doing to mitigate that risk as well. So I, as somebody who's on ARIC, is really comfortable and reassured by having John on our team to be over that.
Has he had a look? Like, have we run this past our ARIC in terms of we have?
Yeah, we have. We report annually on our insurance, so they're well aware of our coverage. Excellent. And haven't raised any concerns with respect to cyber.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Brilliant. Councillor Patrick.
Hi, thank you, Chair. My question sort of follows on from Councillor Wagner's. I'm just wanting to know, with every different item that we are getting insurance for, how do we compare to other councils, even though I know we're in a very unique position? I suppose, is there a benchmark or an index that we work on to actually evaluate how much insurance we are needing every year? And I do like that we're in a collaborative approach with this, but I'm just kind of wondering how we come to our figures.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. So when it comes time for our insurance renewals each year, we complete a number of questionnaires for our insurers, and that helps them determine an appropriate level of coverage for us. They're quite comprehensive questionnaires. And obviously, when we work with LGM liability, because they cover a large amount of councillors, we definitely have a well-informed discussion over appropriate levels of coverage for us.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Davis, had a question?
Thank you. Yeah, I see the increase for the policies is 10.81% from last year. Was there any explanation of why it's gone up so much? I mean, I know probably why, but I'm just asking, did they explain anything to us?
No, nothing in detail, but I think if you look at 10% insurance rise across all insurances, it represents pretty good value in a growing market.
Okay, thank you. And also with the cyber, Councillor Wagner, I know when I was in business, it is very hard to get cyber insurance, and at a sort of top rate as well. So.
Yeah, so with respect to the limits though, this is a scheme that we're signing up for. So these are the scheme limits. So they essentially apply to everyone that you are signing on to with respect to that scheme. So essentially, as we're saying, all by one council in Queensland has the same levels of liability with respect to that. The only addition there is where we brought that additional coverage.
Another question, Councillor Wagner?
Mr. Chair. The additional coverage, so which of these particular coverages have we got extra cover?
Under where it says add an additional $30 million in coverage, that's under council and officers
liability.
liability.
So that's what that means. Okay,
Yes.
the addition.
Yep.
Okay.
And that additional coverage is due to the, I guess, heavy industry and our large clients and customers that we have here.
I'm glad you're clarifying that, because it comes under councillors and officers, so I'm just wondering whether you see us as a huge risk. No. But no, thank you.
Yep. Some more than others. A little bit of brief history. This is a mutual that was came about because of our liabilities essentially of going elsewhere for insurance and that rising prices. I think there's 2 councils that are now not a part of that mutual across the region, and part of our strength is actually us being a part of that mutual agreement that allows us to continue to get not only better pricing, but as was mentioned, that greater holistic point of view is that dividends that come back through a process elsewhere. So there's a cost-effective part of this where we may be able to look at other covers for potential parts of it, but there's a strength that comes from being a part of that mutual that we're also contributing to at a bigger level, I believe. Happy to get any more information or context to that.
No, that's absolutely correct, Councillor McClintock. The only thing I would add on the benefits that we get from being part of the mutual is the additional services that they provide to us in terms of practical advice on reducing our risk, managing risk. It is really a good fit for us.
And I think further to that is that it not only secures some good pricing for us in the whole of life, but it also ensures that other smaller regions and councils also have that potential to have access to affordable insurance. As you can imagine, they may not have the opportunities that we do. I have a mover in Councillor Holzheimer and a second in Councillor Cameron. Are there any other questions online or in the room?
Just a quick comment, thanks, Chair. I'd love to move a point of order, but I wouldn't while you're chairing, just for experience for you, Councillor McClintock. But no, it's a pleasure. There's nothing wrong with testing the market, but the reality of it is history will show that those who've gone out to test the market will always find their way back into the LGM scheme because it really is the best of the best for a fit for local government. That's just a quick comment, and that's been proven and tested over time. So it is a great model as far as I'm concerned. The other part was just coming back to Councillor Wagner's comment in relation to cyber liability. Let's put it in perspective here. And Gladstone Regional Council had a great workshop last week, which was all about cyber crime, and we need to recognise and understand that cybercrime internationally now is the third fastest growth industry in the world. It's growing. It's the third highest in growth. That's cybercrime. So while we can only perhaps understand insurance companies, albeit even through the LGM scheme, are extremely reluctant to try and determine what's that level of coverage that they can provide for liability, we need to also be very conscious of making sure that there is sufficient budget allocation for all the preventative measures that we have in place and have in place for the future to ensure that we don't get impacted by cyber activity and cyber crime. So it's a juggling, it's a balancing act, and as you would see in our budget, that area is exponentially increasing every year to ensure that we've got the right preventative measures to ensure that we do not get our ratepayers affected and the council by these cyber criminals. Just a comment, but thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moved in Councillor Holzheimer, second in Councillor Cameron. All in favour? That's unanimous. Consider it moved. We're going to welcome back the Mayor to chair the rest of the meeting. Someone could let him in.
Okay, thank you, councillors. We'll move on to the next item, which is G4.5, privacy policy. Hand over to the General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk again, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is a review of your privacy policy, and it's quite a timely one with the rolling out of new privacy frameworks across all Queensland councils, requiring essentially a new privacy policy and statements from the 1st of July 2025. So this review takes that all into account. Tanya's team has led the work, and Tanya will be able to take you through the major changes as a result of that.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, councillors. The privacy policy is really quite straightforward. It just, I guess, clarifies our legislative obligations with regards to privacy. As Mark said, the need to change our privacy policy comes as part of the APOLA reforms that have reformed the Queensland privacy principles for all state government agencies, including local government. The change to the policy is really just one of a number of changes that we're implementing across the business.
Thank you. Councillor Wagner?
I think it's great that we're ahead of the
Thank you. Councillor Patrick, are you seconding that, or you have a question? Seconded. Any further questions or comments? Thank you. Put the motion all in favour. The motion is carried. G 4.6 is revised complaints involving the Chief Executive Officer policy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is essentially a policy we're required to have in terms of how we deal with complaints that may arise with respect to the Chief Executive Officer. So there's some minor amendments with respect to the policy. So the last review of this was in 2018, so there's been some minor legislative changes since then. And there's been obviously some changes in positions and the like. So we have taken those into account, but this is a legislative policy that you are required to have.
Thank you.
Happy to move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. I think second, Councillor Wagner. Or you have a question? Seconder. Thank you, Councillor McClintock, and Councillor Wagner for a question, please.
I think it's great. Again, it's good to be updating needs. Do have a question though. Like we're basing this on the model policy, but we've omitted the record keeping requirements of the model policy. Is that because it's captured in another policy? Item 7.
Yeah, we have strong requirements across the business in relation to record keeping.
Okay, so in other words, if it's found that the complaint isn't sort of just or being pursued, they will document that somewhere.
Yeah, we have legislative requirements under the Act with respect to record keeping for the crime and corruption.
Sorry, which Act was that under?
Our record keeping responsibilities under the Public Records Act, but also the Crime and Corruption Act also states very clearly our regards to keeping records with respect to complaints.
I'm just curious. Yeah, I get that, but I'm thinking in that policy, I would probably like to have seen just a reference that we comply with that Act, or you know what I mean? Item 7 of the model.
Sorry, I just need to review the
Yeah, no, you're
policy.
right. I mean, it's just a minor thing, but I just thought, should the nominated person decide that a complaint or information on matter about alleged corrupt conduct by the CEO is not required to be notified the CCC under Section 38 of the CC Act, the nominated person must make a record of the decision that complies with S40A of the CC Act. It's all very convoluted, but yes.
Yeah, so 3.6 there of the draft policy talks about our copy of complaints alleging corrupt conduct.
Okay.
Yep.
That covers that, all these requirements under Section 40A and Section 38.
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, I did find in this particular policy, because there was a lot of reference to acts and sections and that, it would have been lovely to have some plain English for those that have to use. So say you've got a staff member, because even I read it, and obviously I've looked at lots of policies, I thought, does that mean I have to go to the Act, read the Act and go back to it? So I thought it would have been good to have either a footnote or some sort of clarification as to what it means for those who use it.
Sure, but I guess just to give you some clarification over the people who will be referring to this policy is generally the CCC liaison officer, who is a specialist in the area. So for instance, in relation to crime and corruption complaints across the business, I'm Council's CCC liaison officer and work with CCC in relation to those sort of complaints, and also the general manager of people and safety. So
our corporate standard would really clearly say that you were that person that they'd go to. Like, is that where they would go, to the corporate standard, to find out the process? So say someone internally wanted to complain against the CEO and they knew nothing, they might be, I don't know, they maybe knew whatever. Would they know where to go?
Well, they may go directly to the CCC themselves, but we do promote around the business how to report wrongdoing.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
If I don't think it's inappropriate, I was just going to say that this is one type of reporting and one type of complaint, and there are multiple types of that, and we're trying to do a lot more work around the business to explain if there's something wrong, something's not sitting right, speak with your leader. If you're not comfortable with your leader, here's some other people would say.
Okay.
without people, as you rightly say, having to define and understand what the legislation is. There's something here I don't think is quite right. Who can I talk to about it to get to the right?
And I suppose that's it.
Act,
It's
if
great
that
to
helps.
have this, and I know that it needs to be written in a certain way to make sure that we comply, but it's still got to be usable. So yeah, thank you, and it's good to see that work being done so staff do know where to go, and especially if it is their immediate supervisors they're not comfortable with, that they have other options. Yeah.
And I certainly take on your feedback with respect to the legislative provisions and making sure we're providing guidance around that in our policies.
Okay, thank you. Good job.
Councillor Churchill? Sorry, no, you're out? He's all good. Further questions?
Yeah,
Councillor?
all good, thank you.
Councillor McClintock.
I was just going to add, I think the risk we run when we start to articulate acts within policies is the outdated policy becomes conflicting with acts that change and update. And so I think as long as we have those processes in place at a very human level, that those who are required to articulate that policy, it just creates an administrative burden, I can imagine, trying to make sure that you've got acts that are articulated within policies, that refer to other policies that are all create this web of chaos. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to refer to acts rather than to try and reinvent the wheel is probably my take on it when you're reading through the policies. I'd much rather have a link that I can go and properly read what that's meaning rather than somebody's interpretation that I don't quite
I like
grab.
the link idea, but what I'll put to you is there's a lot of people that wouldn't even know where to go and look in an act, and if they did, they wouldn't be able to understand the language of an act. So there are people with, there's a lot of people with low literacy, and ones that just aren't immersed in that, because they are very, when you read them, you've got to, they're not that easy. So yes, but I take that on board, but yeah. And I understand too, if you want to put it in plain language, then you might be dumbing it down and then there could be a loophole in it. I get that too, so it is a balance.
That was probably my point,
yeah. So thank you.
Okay, any further questions? No. Have a move around to seconder already, that's right, Rach? Yep. All in favour? Thank you, that's carried. We move to 4.7, the repeal of the water meter policy. Back to you, Mark. Well, talk me through this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is proposing a repeal of our water meter policy, which at the moment is essentially providing two bodies of work. One with respect to the technical guidance of what a water meter is required to do and how we outwork that, and that is now covered through the plumbing and wastewater codes. It also covers our billing pieces, and we essentially have our revenue statement as to how we actually recover and deal with all billing inquiries and how we deal with concealed leaks, etc. So there's ways that we manage and outwork the outcomes of the current policy that was in 2015 in different ways. So it's proposed that we repeal the 2015 policy, and because essentially we've got that covered both either through the state code or in your revenue policy, revenue statement, sorry.
I can just also add to that the information that's been contained in this policy is being added to our website, so customers can very easily access the information within a customer-friendly way without having to refer to a policy.
Okay. So nothing's changing in terms of if a resident wants their meter tested, in terms of sub-meters, in terms of broken meters and things like that. All this is the same, and not. And was this reviewed 3 years after 2015?
I will have to have a look.
It was meant to be, and just.
I believe that it hasn't been reviewed.
It was meant to be reviewed in 2018.
2018, that's correct.
I'm glad we're reviewing all our policies now.
Yes.
Because that's as an example of what I was speaking with Lisa about a few months ago. There's a resolution of council to review this in 2018 and it didn't happen. And now we're asking to get rid of it. I'm comfortable, but I also want to make sure the reason we have some of those things in the policy was to protect the residents and ratepayers around who pays and who's responsible for water meters that may not necessarily not work. Good news is we're putting in all brand new ones, so
But we also
hopefully won't have this problem for a while.
But we also cover those now in your revenue statement is far more expanded in that space, and that's what covers those pieces of concern.
Yeah, we shouldn't have an issue with them not working in the near future. Otherwise, we've got an issue with our supplier because they should be all new. All right. Any further questions, councillors? No. I'll put them. I need to move around a seconder for the officer recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Davis. Seconded, Councillor Patrick. All in favour? Motion's carried. The next is G4.8, the Gladstone Airport Corporation Statement of Corporate Intent, where Councillor Churchill has declared a conflict but has voted that he remain in the room and just not vote on the item because he is a board member of the Gladstone Airport Corporation appointed by council to our wholly owned subsidiary of our business. Yep. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as you've articulated there, the Gladstone Airport Corporation is essentially a wholly owned subsidiary of council, and as part of its obligations in terms of setting its budget for the financial year, it prepares a statement of corporate intent, which you need to endorse as council. So this is a statement of corporate intent for the financial year 2026, and basically sets out the expected performance of the business and what essentially are the KPIs that we're expecting to be reported back against. We have asked the airport to do some modelling and with respect to alternative dividend policies. So your current dividend policy with respect to the airport has been one of a 50% return of net profit. Moving it to a 75% of net profit just gives that little bit extra return to council, and by way of difference for this year, if essentially the forecasts come through, that's a $60,000 difference this financial year. Over a 10-year period, if that forecast was to come through, that would be a $2 million difference, essentially, if they would hit every one of those forecasts. But that's essentially the significant difference. But this really is almost approving and endorsing the budget for the Gladstone Airport Corporation for the 2026 financial year.
Thank you. Councillor Holzheimer.
I think that I would like some information from Councillor Churchill in regards to this as to the impacts perceived as somebody who sits on the board for the Airport Corporation. I know we've talked about this and many of us have been keen to increase the percentage of the dividend from those conversations. However, I just would like to understand the impact on the airport with moving forward with what would that 60,000 do if it was in their pocket versus in ours, and mean for their viability, and understanding as well they are an offshoot of GRC in a way as well as the corporation. So I don't know if there's anything else you can add to helping me make this decision, Councillor Churchill.
Over to you, Glenn.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Holzheimer. Probably best at this stage, if I was to preface this with a question, has there been any dialogue between Mayor Matt and the chair of the Gladstone Airport Corporation, based on the fact that our general manager rightfully has indicated that the direction was given to the Gladstone Airport Corporation to undertake some modelling? And my other point that I would like to make, because I'm not wanting to be in a position to influence you either way, as I'd indicated when I declared that initial conflict that I was trying to come to grips with, is that the Airport Corporation, history will show, if we go back a fair way, history will show that there was an indication by some to sell the airport at a time when it was ripe in the marketplace, and chose not to pursue that on the basis of recovery. And then COVID came along appropriately, and they've been on a very good recovery program for a period of time. And only recently, 2 weeks ago, they did their forward planning, their strategic planning workshop, which I'm not sure whether that's been shared with the chief executive or the general manager at this particular stage, because I think there's some exciting opportunities at the forefront of their strategic planning workshop outcomes, and maybe that might be presented at the next deputation. But initially I felt that the jump from 50 to 75% was a substantial jump in light of their endeavours with the patient transfer facility and upgrades and their activity that they've been very proactive on, the CEO and their personnel, in attracting additional funding for improved infrastructure for an asset owned by the council or on behalf of the ratepayers. And I just perhaps thought there might have been a way in that statement of corporate intent to provide an increment, something that I know that there's two options there before you that you have to consider, but it seems a substantial jump from 50 to 75, and perhaps there may have been a third option to try and find a happy medium between the 50 and the 75 that may not necessarily have had a huge impact on what the Airport Corporation Board is planning and proposing to do over the next 12 months, 5 years and 10 years. Mindful, and perhaps I can stand to be corrected, but you can review this statement of corporate intent annually if you wish to. Hopefully, Councillor Holzheimer, hopefully that might be able to shed some light at this stage.
Thanks. Things you mentioned to me there, I'll answer a couple of those things. Well, firstly, as councillors would be aware, and the community may not, unless they're watching our live stream and council meetings, the Gladstone Airport Corporation regularly do presentations to our boardroom and keep us updated on how they're performing. And I can say that I believe since Adrienne Ward has been put in as the chair, the board has been performing excellently. And I'm very pleased with our new appointments to the board as well. The financial management of the organisation is very sound, which is why I think this recommendation from our officers is timely. And I don't think that the jump from 50% to 75% is too much. We are entitled to 100% dividend, as in our council, our community, back from the airport. It cost our community a lot of money to upgrade that airport to allow for the LNG construction to take place. It would not have been able to happen to the way it happened had we not invested significant funds in upgrading the runway. So it's time that the airport, I believe, return the dividend to our community, and 75% is not too much to ask. It's not 100%. It's only $60,000. And I think if there's an issue, like you mentioned, we can review it. If we seem to be claiming too much back and they can't manage it, they can certainly discuss that with us. But we've got to signal to the airport that our community has done our hard yards, and it's time for the airport to deliver a greater dividend back to the community that owns the entity. And I don't see there being an opposition from the board or the chair. It certainly hasn't been indicated during their meetings at council. In terms of the patient transfer facility, they have secured a grant. And then something else I'd like to mention, that again, since the new board's been put in place, and the new manager there as well, they've successfully applied for and received grants, which previously hadn't necessarily happened. So, you know, they're entitled to apply for grants. They've applied for them, they've received them. I also believe major industry will support that facility as well. And it is an amazing facility. But just because we've increased, or potentially increasing their dividend back to the community and ratepayers today, well, I don't believe that the $60,000 would have a massive impact on the viability of the Airport Corporation. Grant, Mark, would you like to add to that?
Yep, so just with respect to the mechanics, a statement of corporate intent is required to be adopted each financial year. So this is something, a decision you can review each financial year. And just by way of comparison, in terms of where the proposed statement of corporate intent, increasing it to a 75% dividend this year still leaves the business with 13.9 months worth of cash at the end of the year. That compares favourably to council and probably in excess of what council would be doing comparatively. So it's not short. And if I would suggest if it does get to a point down the track, and we're not there yet, that you put a parameter with respect to essentially a cash expenses cover with respect to your declaring a dividend, if that's was so inclined. But we're nowhere near that at the moment because we've got essentially 13.9 months worth of cash in terms of running our business. So we've got over 12 months worth of operating cash there.
Thank you. I got Councillor Davis.
Mayor Matt, could I just can I just make a quick comment just on record? Is that understanding that the Airport Corporation and that dividend is reinvested back into council's asset in the infrastructure. It's not excess that is distributed anywhere else or given as a surplus. It is reinvested into council's infrastructure. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, McClintock, and then Cameron.
Thank you. Councillor Holzheimer has asked my question, and I think Councillor Churchill has just sort of touched on what my next question was. So if we increase it to the 75%, the surplus, will that just sit on our balance sheet as a surplus, or have we got sort of, will that go back into infrastructure or?
Yep. So the difference at the moment when we consolidate, we essentially show essentially as a receipt in the council entity. And the consolidated entity washes out. But in the council entity, we see a receipt come back from essentially the airport with respect to a dividend. So in your proposed budget, you'll have a 50% dividend. So what if you move to a 75%, that would be essentially, would be forecasting an additional receipt there.
Thank you. Councillor McClintock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'll wrestle a little bit backwards and forwards with this one. It's not a substantial amount in the grand scheme of things that we're talking about, but for a smaller entity, which the airport is versus local government, the Gladstone Regional Council, it makes it more significant to them, definitely. But the other side to that is further to what Mayor Matt has just mentioned, is that we have history of supporting the airport when the needs do arise as a boardroom, that we will actually step up and be able to support should something substantial happen. They don't need to have that cash in bank to overcome those sort of circumstances, that we will and do have in the past supported those sort of things, i.e. runway upgrades, things like that, should the needs arise in the future. So I kind of see it a little bit null and void in many regards, that we're taking it here, putting it there, it's moving stuff around. But can you, I don't know what my question is, but a bit of clarity on
so essentially,
why we, I guess, okay, let me ask you a better question. Why do we want this, apart from wanting to get that dividend back? Is that where that purely stems from, or is there other reasons for that?
To me, you're essentially you're asking the airport board to manage an asset on your behalf. So what you're seeking is essentially a little bit better return from that asset. Council still bears over and above the low liability that is on the airport's book, still bears an additional $14 million of debt. Thank you. That is there. So there's essentially needs to be recognition of that. There's risks that we bear ongoing over and above management of the asset.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
So 14 or
40? 14. 14. So that is not already part of the airport's books.
That when they asked us to, we managed that for them. Councillor Cameron, then Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noticed in the report there you refer to the dividend after taxation, and the fact that we're not a taxed entity, is that referring to tax equivalents?
Yes, correct.
So does the 75% apply to the tax equivalents?
So essentially they'll still, so the dividend will be determined after the application of tax equivalents. So they'll determine a result after they've applied. So they're required to determine tax equivalents based on its operating position. And like any business, after they've then paid all their obligations, they then make a decision with respect to dividend. So
that's a separate calculation?
Yes.
So the dividend we're talking about is after the tax equivalents?
Correct.
And that's why it's only 60,000?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So.
Can you, Councillor Wagner?
Yeah, look, a lot of the questions have been asked and rightly so. My initial thought on this was it is a huge increase and it is still a council entity of sorts. It is a corporation, it needs to stand alone on its own feet. So my concern is if we take the money back, and they've always got this idea that if something's needed, council props it up. To me, that's not a good model for a corporation. The airport redevelopment was 65 million, including the airport terminal upgrade from memory originally. How much did we borrow originally to do the airport, to do the whole project?
63.5.
We borrowed 63.5, and we've now down to 14 million.
40 million in total.
So we've reduced.
So there is debt that's worn by the airport that the airport repays, and then there's also a separate portion that essentially council has over and above that.
So the airport, how much debt do they? Like how was that
so
determined?
So as part of this report, so in terms of their debt on their books, they've got 28 million at the end of next financial year.
So that 28 million was part of the original 50 million that we borrowed, and we've got 14. So what's that? 42 million out of 50 million still owing, and that was done in 2012, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
earlier,
is there a way that we can have these, if we did increase it, can that money be offsetting our, or the debt liability? Because that's a lot, we'd be paying interest on that.
It would be by virtue of us receiving that, it would be going and offsetting that debt. Yes.
We have fixed loans.
But our debt is subject to formal agreements we've already got with Queensland Treasury Corporation,
which we refinanced for the lowest possible price interest rate a few years ago.
Look, we did a good job with that, and I know that we were sort of hoping to get more funding originally for it. I get all that, and we did get 5.5 million or something for the terminal, but I'd love to see that debt reducing a bit quicker, and I know that we had a few, I suppose, potholes in I shouldn't say that when it comes to the airport, but no, we actually had a lump, but we had a few periods where, particularly COVID and what have you, where we didn't get the returns, I suppose, that we were hoping to get, but it would be really good to get that debt down. So on the other side of it, I'm thinking if you've got that sort of money and it allows the airport to, I don't know what their plans are, and it would have been good to know that in advance of this, but if they had that money and it allowed them to make more money.
the decision in front of you today is with respect to your statement of corporate intent. I understand there might have been some additional master planning only done a day or two ago, so all you can really go with is what's been presented in front of you. And that statement of corporate intent does already have a 10-year CapEx pipeline there as well. So that this does fund that.
Yep, no worries. It does seem like a big, even though it's only the amount that we get doesn't seem like that much in the scheme of things, it's still a fairly substantial increase. So yeah, I'm sort of, okay, but I take on board what everyone has said, and
it's not. It would be no surprise to the airport corporation that the owner of their wholly owned subsidiary is ultimately after 100% dividend.
Yeah,
that's
no, I
the
get it.
ultimate game or aim. And at 75%, after many years of accepting 50%, and at one point I'm sure 0, they're on a path to get there, and it's because of great leadership at the board level that we got there. They're fine, I believe, sound financial management now puts them in a position to make this payment very easily. Councillor Patrick.
Sorry, I was just going to basically say what you were saying there, Matt. And this is just a corporate intent for the next 12 months. So next year we can review that. So with not really being armed with what the plans are of the Airport Corporation, I feel that as the owner of the Airport Corporation, we definitely are within a comfortable area of asking 75%.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. When I was campaigning, I did hear from a lot of residents about the dividend from the airport, so I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Patrick, second. Any further questions or comments? I'll put the motion. All in favour? That motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is G 4.9, councillor appointment to the Gladstone Area Water Board. Councillors, as there is a number of councillors interested in this position, including the Deputy Mayor, who is not here, I propose we defer this to the next council meeting. I'll move.
Happy to move it.
Well, I'll move, and I'll take that as a seconder, Councillor Patrick. All in favour? Motion's carried. That item is deferred. We move to G 4.10, which is the Regional Arts Development Fund. I believe Kylie is online, thank you, and Felicity might be online as well. And we'll have the chair in the room, Councillor Holzheimer, but I hand over to you, Kylie, the General Manager of Community and Lifestyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Felicity Barker is joining me online as well as the Manager of Arts and Entertainment. This report we have tabled in front of you today is for our Regional Arts Development Fund, and it's for consideration of two applications that have been tabled within 24-25 funding round. One of those is an application that has been brought back to the room after reassessment, which is the Women of the World Conference, which looks at 4 different initiatives which have been requested by the community through the through consultation. In reassessing this particular application, it does meet the assessment criteria and it does have a strong alignment to the RADF objectives. What we found within the reassessment is a little bit of a misunderstanding between volunteers against actual participants in the actual events. So I can confidently say that it is aligned with our objectives and our criteria, and it was retabled in front of our committee who have agreed to the funding of the $12,500. We also wanted to take the opportunity to table an out-of-round application from the Embroiderers Guild of Gladstone for a value of $2,000, which is a needle lace workshop with a Gold Coast tutor, which looks at increasing the practical skills of the club and their self-confidence in their members and promoting their well-being. Should councillors endorse the officer's recommendation, the RADF applications for 24-25 will be a total of $41,485 and will leave a balance of approximately $55,500 to be used for the previously endorsed public art master plan, which will also mean that there will be a $0 carryover into next financial year. So we will be expending all of the funding for RADF within this particular financial year. I invite any questions councillors may have on this report.
Questions, Councillor Wagner?
Sorry, just because it's me. No, sorry. Yeah, thanks for that, Kylie. Couple of questions. The embroiderers proposal there, do you know how many people will attend that workshop, or did they sort of give an indication of how many people that would be able to cater for?
I'll just pass this one over to Flick. Felicity, did you have in their application, did they indicate how many people would be attending?
I'll just grab that info for you now. It won't be a sec.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wagner, while Felicity is getting that information, is there another question I can answer for you?
Yeah, so the other one there, I actually do support this in terms of the Women of the World, because I think this does really align with the goals of RADF. However, something I did want to flag is we did award Women of the World Festival $25,000 previously for their, and so I'm just flagging that with some of the grants that we've got, because we've got different buckets of money, and RADF is a little bit of an exception to that, it's the cumulative money that we're giving to these particular organisations that concerns me. And while I do support this one, the festival itself, when you go online now, and have a look at even registering for it, doesn't actually say what is actually happening there. And I'm just concerned that we're giving this money and that we need to be following up and making sure that if we're giving that cumulative amount, that it actually is catering for, you know, enough people. Because if you've only got 100 at it and we're giving totally 37,000 or whatever to it, that's a lot of money towards it. And should we be asking people to contribute some amount towards these things, just to make sure that, you know, I suppose keeping them on track, because I'm not sure whether a council should be funding everything for everyone. But the one for the festival, I do ask that, it just highlights that, there are different buckets of money that people can apply for, and I just ask other councillors to really consider if we're giving it to one or a few groups, then are we then denying the opportunity to others as well? But saying that, I do support this particular. I think this one aligns well with funding. I'm not sure whether that other one did, and I think I did highlight that at the time. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wagner, for your question. The previous funding was from the Community Investment Fund. The majority of the funding was actually for venue costs, which for the Gladstone Entertainment Convention Centre. The conference is across 3 days and utilising the entirety of our Gladstone Entertainment Convention Centre. So their funding in the last round that was approved was predominantly to facilitate the conference itself. What we're looking at here are the actual initiatives that fall under the conference, particularly those that align with arts and culture capability. So I do take your point. However, sometimes an investment needs to be made in a locality in which to host the event, and I'm glad that they've chosen Gladstone and the Gladstone Entertainment Convention Centre.
Look, I agree totally that it is great to bring them here, but I do ask you to go on and have a look at the booking online, and I'm wondering if you didn't know what was going on, whether or not you'd know what's actually being offered. That's all I'm saying, because a component of that last lot of money went towards marketing, and all I see is, I'll book it, but it doesn't actually say what it is. So
no, the program. That's quite right, Councillor Wagner. I have been online to go into booking. The tickets are $30, but the program hasn't been released yet. I would say that's because the program is being tightened up with other funding that's involved. So I do understand your concerns, but they have a very good record of delivery worldwide. So I'm very confident that the program will be released shortly.
That'd be great, because maybe it'd be worth putting some words to that effect on there, so people know that, hey, program coming soon. Because I do know
I can provide that feedback.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And
thank you.
Just on that, there's 12 participants currently for the lace and needle workshop, and then obviously that gets showcased to approximately 500 people. And the display itself, but they've got 12 signed up for the actual workshop itself through the Embroiderers Guild. And I just wanted to mention that there was actually a mention of external funding to council for WOW in their application. So they have actually tried to source from funds other than council.
So if there's 12 there now, is it still open to others can still join it? Because 12 for $2,000 is still, I mean, it's important, I get that, but is it still open to others if they wanted to be part of that?
I believe they are still seeking funding. The funding on the actual application itself was still pending. And I think the total project cost was around $34,000. They were seeking $12,500 from council, and I think the external application for other funding was around $5,000.
Flick, sorry.
Sorry, Flick. I think
we moved back on to the.
Councillor Wagner's talking about the embroidery.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No,
I would assume that with that sort of workshop, there would be a cap on how many you can actually handle at one time. I'm not actually sure if it is open, but we can certainly find out and get back to you on that.
I think, look, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you responding. But I think that, for any money that we're spending, it would be really good to have a look at, 12 could be really valuable, because it could, if we're doing an exhibition later on and it shares that knowledge and understanding and the whole lot, that is good, but it would be really good to have a look at that when they're doing the application, because it's still about responsible use of public money. But I appreciate it.
I think with the Embroiderers Guild is very similar to what we've seen with the Men's Shed, where they upskilled their local facilitators, and then they share those skills with the broader community if that is an interest. Okay. So it's essentially about upskilling the people who are in that network, and then they do share that as well through the Embroiderers Guild, what they've actually learnt.
Excellent. No, and that's, I suppose, what RADF is all about. So, yeah, I think that is really positive. I do support both of them.
Thank you. Councillor Holzheimer and then Councillor Patrick.
I wanted to acknowledge the hard work that has gone in from Felicity and her team in regards to RADF and some of the work to develop stronger governance. The application from WOW was a really good learning for the committee and also GRC staff in regards to some practices that needed to be refined, and that we went back and did more work on. And then last week we were in Canberra. The week before, we had a session with all of the volunteers and the committee to do some upskilling and some sharing of the new documentation that will not only support the committee, but also people in the community who will apply for RADF. So streamlining some of those processes on Smarty Grants to make it a much simpler process for community as well as for the committee making those decisions. So well done on all the work, Felicity, and your team in that space as well. I do have a question though, and I think we might have talked about this, but excuse my memory. For the $2,000 grants, for the smaller grants, did we have some discussions about maybe them not actually having to come to the chambers for a decision like our quick grants process that we have under the communities team as well, so that we can just action them a lot quicker?
Yeah, so the terms of reference document is in its final draft at the moment. After the consultation with the RADF committee, we've got some changes to make to that, but that will be coming to council very shortly. And in turn, we'll then be able to update our guidelines. A lot of work has gone on in the back end of Smarty Grants as well. But part of the terms of reference update will be seeking council permission to implement a rapid round similar to what other councils offer, which basically empowers the RADF committee to assess and approve applications received out of round up to $2,000 without going to council resolution. So we haven't got that approved yet, but we're hoping that that will be something that council has an appetite for in future.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you. I look forward to that coming to the chambers for a decision.
Yeah. Councillor Patrick,
sorry, yeah, just adding on, I just wanted to make a quick comment. It's not actually a question on Councillor Wagner's comments. I endorse, or I think these two projects are very worthy of receiving this funding. And I think for me, this is all about grassroots learning and intergenerational as well as global activities that put our community in the forefront of what we do best, and that's just being community. So do we have a mover for this, Mayor Matt?
No, not yet.
I would be happy to move that we accept. Sorry.
The officer's recommendation?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Seconded by Councillor Wagner. Any further comments or questions? No, I'll put the vote. All in favour? Motion's carried. Are we interested to hear more about this proposed amendment at some point in the future? Thank you. All right, we'll move to G4.11, lease renewal, Dolphin. Well, it says Scouts Association, but it's Dolphin Sea Scouts. So over to you, Libby, I believe. Or is Kylie first and then Libby?
I'll go first, and then Libby will be supporting me. Thank you so much. Libby Catamol is our Community Leasing Officer and has been doing a wonderful job of liaising with our community to really clear a backlog of leases that we've had. We're really proud, again, to present 2 further leases for renewal. The first of which is the renewal for the Scout Association of Australia, the Dolphins branch, which is situated in Tranberg Street in Gladstone. The Scouts first entered into a lease with council in 1987, and their most recent lease period was up until 2022, and are currently in a holdover period. So all lease conditions still apply. We're now seeking to formalise that lease again for a further period of 10 years with our standard lease conditions as per our land use policy. I invite any questions, and Libby's on hand in the room there to answer any questions as well, councillors.
Thank you. Questions to General Manager, please. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. No questions. I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Churchill. All in favour? Motion's carried. I should have said any more questions, but I think it's very straightforward, as is the next one. Over to you, Kylie. 4.12. Gladstone Community Linking Agency.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So this is a lease for the Gladstone Community Linking Agency with regard to their premises at 55 Oxley Drive in Gladstone. I think it's 55. Sorry, 33. Got my numbers wrong. This facility is used to support 4 or 5 clients who actually live at the property on a long-term basis. And allows them to have live-in care under the NDIS. So Gladstone Community Linking Agency has had a lease with councils on the particular premises since 1990, and their current lease expired in June 2021 and again is in a holding period. So GCLA has requested a 5-year lease period in alignment with their strategic plan, and this will also allow them to do some minor upgrades to the facility with respect to landscaping and some internal improvements. I welcome any questions, councillors.
Councillor Holzheimer.
I know, me again. Love this house. Have spent many hours working, doing shifts there when I was a disability support worker at Clyde a long time ago. I was wondering why we haven't ever considered selling the property.
I just said that to see. I want to just give it to them.
To them or to handing that property over, because a lot's changed in regards to the world of the disability sector and NDIS and growth and ownership over that property. I could imagine would be a really great asset for the Gladstone Community Linking Agency, and also long-term security for residents with planning for sill houses, accommodation, that sort of thing into the future. So have we had that conversation and what have they communicated back in that space?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Holzheimer. I will refer to Libby on this one, as Libby has done the majority of negotiations with GCLA. Thanks, Libby.
Oh, it's on already. Yes, that conversation has already been had, and that's the reason why it's a 5-year lease renewal, because that aligns with their plans to actually look at the funding to actually then possibly go into an agreement to purchase the facility. They weren't at a position right now to do that, but it is something that we actually are discussing with them.
At $1 a year, it's not a revenue fundraiser for us. So, anyway, I'm glad it's a 5-year lease, and if in the time they can come to us and potentially have a way of purchasing it or taking over ownership, however that might be.
Because I just don't see that is core business that we need to be doing as well. So transitioning out of that space, I think, would be really great in partnership with them when they're ready, because they have had that residence for a long time.
Lovely.
And just to
And
add to
Councillor
that too,
Holzheimer, sorry if I can just add, I've just had confirmation from the manager of community partnerships as well that it is our intention to outwork some kind of transfer, and this 5-year lease gives us the ability to do that.
What a great.
Beautiful. Happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Moved Councillor Holzheimer and seconded by Councillor Wagner. Is there any further questions on this one? Fantastic. Put the motion all in favour. Online. Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is the end of our officers' reports. Thank you, Libby. Thank you, Carly. And thank you, Mark, from before. I missed you, and also to Felicity. We'll now move to councillor reports. Normally I would just ask if there's any councillor reports, but I did flag earlier Councillor McClintock and Cameron attended the ATQLD event. Could you just brief council and the boardroom on that?
Absolutely. Apprentice Trainees Queensland has just had an intake of around 8, I believe it was, trainees into a business accounting traineeship over the next 18 weeks, which was actually really exciting to see. They're integrating with local businesses and not-for-profits in particular within the region and supporting that process of how they outwork their day-to-day business. So it was great to meet with some of those local organisations, see some of the faces of these young people coming through. They were very quiet and reserved as day one of the 18 weeks, and I'm sure they'll come out of their shells over the 18 weeks or so as they learn the ins and outs of what it means to be a part of team. I got a chance to speak with a couple of the young members. They've left school probably in the last couple of years, a lot of them, and we're really excited about the opportunities that it presented to them. It wasn't a small process to get into that traineeship. There was quite a big desire to do it, and only a limited number of spots. So congratulations to all those who actually made it through the process, got into that traineeship, and all the best over the next 18 weeks.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron?
Yes, there was 8 that went through. The week before, we actually went to, I went to a graduation ceremony for, I think it was 9 that actually just completed the 18-week program. So the apprentice and trainees are actually moving people through into the next program before they've even finished the one that they're on. So they're really getting on top of things. And yeah, great program, and it's great to see these people and the smile on their faces as they graduated. But as I pointed out to them, congratulations on your completion of your course, but now the work really begins. That took the smile off their face a bit, but anyway. No, great program, and pleased to be a part of it.
Thank you. Any other councillor reports? Oh, you have more? Okay, Councillor McClintock.
I'd just like to flag, I got the opportunity last week to sit on a Q&A panel at Gladstone State High School. I believe Councillor Holzheimer was able to do that last year, which was a leadership conference, they called it, but essentially it was all of their leaders across the Gladstone State High School, but also their feeder schools, Clinton, they had Central and West, I believe, there as well. So it was quite a number of young leaders within that room, ranging from grade 7 right through to grade 12. And I kind of probably had a bit of a preconception of the level of questions that were going to be asked, and it went a lot deeper. And I left that engagement feeling really, really excited about the next generation of leaders coming through and the level of thinking that they operated within that leadership space and the way that they were being proactive in that, led a lot by the young people, but it was just such a great day filled with leadership inspiration, but also cultivating some of those core skills that are involved in leadership and how you make good decision making, how you respond to criticism, how you ensure that your processes that you go through are well articulated, thought through, and inclusive of those within you, so around you. So yeah, really, really walked away from that feeling inspired in many regards, and well done to Gladstone State High School staff, who I know have put a lot of energy and effort into making that happen. And well done to all the young people for thinking at that level and being proactive. There was a lot of enthusiasm, not just people who were keen to have a day of fun, but it was the last day of school for term, and they were pumped about learning and engaging. So really, really well done to all involved, and congratulations.
Thank you. Any further councillor reports? Councillor Patrick online, then Councillor Churchill.
Thanks, Mayor Matt. Just following on from your mayoral report, you touched on the Mount Larkham show. It was my great privilege to help open the Mount Larkham show. As we know, it is a great showcase for our region's agricultural and creativity spaces. There was an overwhelming popularity to the show this year. And I just really wanted to take the time to thank, there are lots of people that make the show happen, but in particular, Cheryl Browning, the president of the Mount Larkham Show Society, for her dedication and commitment. Jean Peters, our patron, our queen of the show, who spoke and addressed everyone at the show with a very heartfelt speech on the day of her over 70 years participation within the Mount Larkham show and her lifelong contribution, which is nothing short of incredible, really. Kim Hannett, one of the other patrons who worked so hard behind the scenes and was also vital to the show's success. Sarah Perkins, the 2024 Queensland Country Life Showgirl, was also celebrated for her passion for agriculture and community. And I saw her out and about talking with lots of youngsters at the show, which is really just so inspirational for our young people. And of course, I just want to thank all of the sponsors and the volunteers. The volunteers, they are truly remarkable, and our show wouldn't be our show without the volunteers. So special thanks to all of them, and well done to everyone involved. So that's what I wanted to talk about with the Mount Larkham show. I have put together last week, Councillor Holzheimer and myself, along with you, Mayor Matt, but as the president of ELGA, went down to Canberra for the local government National General Assembly. We were joined with over 1,300 other councillors, mayors, and executive leaders from more than 500 councils across the country. It was an absolutely huge gathering, and it was a great chance to connect with others, share ideas, and make sure our region's communities are part of a national conversation. So what did we get up to? Well, first of all, congratulations to our Mayor Matt, on making his maiden speech as president at the National Assembly. Yes, that's
National
correct.
General Assembly.
Yes, so he welcomed everyone and shared ELGA's recent wins in policy and advocacy for councils nationally. We heard from federal leaders, the Minister Christy McBain, who spoke about how councils help to build strong, healthy communities. We also heard from Shadow Minister Dr. Anne Webster and Senator James McGrath, who also addressed us, showing strong support for local government from both sides of politics. A very inspirational speaker who I really related to was Her Excellency, the Governor-General, who gave a powerful speech about the role of councils in rural and regional areas. She highlighted the importance of educating our young people about government works, or how government works, and empowering them to become involved with government in all levels. We had lots of, I think there was a record amount, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor Matt, a record amount of motions presented.
Mm-hmm.
And that was wonderful to see a range of topics being debated, from financial sustainability to road safety to climate change and productivity. The debates were lively and full of passion, and it was truly great to see so much participation and engagement by everyone. We had some keynote speakers. Mark Boris gave us some insight into the current economic climate and what it means for local government. For those who don't know who Mark was, he he's an very much an acclaimed businessman. Owned Wizard, or still does own Wizard, and is a TV personality. We heard also from Stephen Schiller, former Facebook CEO for Australia and New Zealand, who talked about how AI can help councils work smarter and serve communities better. So that was really, really very insightful. We had an address from Jason Clark, who brought energy and humour to his talk on leadership and innovation, and it was a crowd favourite. And then we actually had an amazing ministerial engagement forum hosted by ABC's David Spear. This forum gave us a chance to ask questions directly to federal ministers, including Christy McBain, Gillian Hill, Josh Wilson, and the Finance Minister, Senator Katie Gallagher. Minister Gallagher spoke about improving support and working conditions for councillors and mayors, which I believe is something that is very long overdue. Some of my personal reflections, and Councillor Holzheimer may want to sum up her reflections, but I was truly honoured to be able to represent Gladstone Regional Council at a national event. It was the first time I had ever been to Canberra, and I did survive the cold, but I do have a cold now. So if any of our fellow councillors ever had the opportunity to participate in this, then I would strongly encourage them to do so. And I do wish to thank our leadership and all of my fellow councillors for allowing me the absolute privilege of attending the National Assembly conference. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Yeah, I think a few of us got the flu there, but I've got mostly over it now. I don't know why we continue to have this conference in Canberra in June. But anyway, it is what it is. You think the President could change things. Yeah, I know, but yeah, there's one vote. Anyway, it's in June and has been in June for a long time, and yeah, it doesn't scare people away. Like you said, we had a record number of attendance with 1,300 delegates, well, more than 1,300 delegates. So, any further reports, Councillor Holzheimer, would you like to add to that at all?
Yeah, sure can. I agree with Councillor Patrick in regards to what a great experience it is to see some of the calibre of the other mayors and deputies and councillors when they are speaking to motions. It's really inspiring and energises you as a councillor and assists you to see the bigger picture in regards to what we do here in our region and how it actually links up with different layers and levels of government as well. I loved all of the opportunities to find efficiencies, I think, in the work that we do through AI and some of the big work that needs to be done in that to have good governance that guides us in using AI into the future. And it was a really big focus as well on disaster preparedment, betterment programs, and how we can actually ensure sustainability within community as we move forward in regards to how we build things, how we just look at the day-to-day work. And I thought it was also fabulous to see the different age range of councillors in the room as well. So it's definitely shifted. It's definitely professionalising the role a lot more. Lots of young men and women present that are shaping the future and the conversations around the table as well. So can't wait to go back again. But I'll give somebody else a turn next year.
Yeah, it's generally not a big fight to go to Canberra in June. Or Canberra in general. Any other councillor reports? Councillor Churchill, that's right, thank you.
That's right, no, thank you for that. And having been to Canberra many, many times in the past, I don't think we're all in a hurry to get there all there at the same time, but there is a reason, and perhaps you could share that, Mayor Matt, is that it's the availability of your federal ministers and shadow ministers and prime ministers and everything else, because I think others have tried to shift it from middle of winter, and I don't think it'll shift.
No, well, it's always in a sitting week. However, the government changed the sitting week this year, so it actually wasn't in a sitting week for the first time that I can ever remember. Anyway, we won't get into our thoughts on
But
that.
anyway,
But normally it is a sitting week. Yeah.
If I could just make a quick, I'll try and make it as brief as I can, but Friday night you made mention of the wonderful world-class Queensland Symphony Orchestra, Symphony Under the Stars, and just a shout out to our community for not only attending but continuing to support that Symphony Under the Stars. It was I suppose it was a pleasure for me in my circumstances to break out for the first time, and for those that could attend, Councillor Cameron and Councillor McClintock there in the crowd. But as such, I suppose the music gods and the weather gods was extremely kind to us, and it was a wonderful performance. Absolutely enjoyable. It's fantastic. And if I could just give a couple of quick shout outs to the who helped make this all happen. The Australian Pacific LNG, operated by ConocoPhillips, and the Queensland Symphony Orchestra. They keep coming back every year, and perhaps Gladstone region could be their second home. Obviously, our Gladstone Regional Council and the wonderful crew at the Gladstone Entertainment and Convention Centre, who behind the scenes, really do make it happen. Two of the officers, Lisa and Nicola, not selecting those out, but we tried to do a bit of a good head count or a guesstimate, and it's probably up to about 3,500 people have attended, and I think that's absolutely indicative of the success and the music and the magnificent show. And the last part of it, I suppose, is a shout out for the Queensland Symphony Orchestra's side-by-side program. That's the one where they provide a valuable opportunity for our aspiring and even inspiring local musicians, our young musicians, to get an opportunity to perform with them on stage. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd just like to make mention to William Mapleson from the Gladstone State High School. He played the trombone. Ava Allen, Tannum Sands State High School, was on percussion, and Tabitha Ryan Salter from Chanel College, who played the clarinet. And I think in essence, at the end of the day, we look forward to number 14, be it next year, as the council continues to support this. And last but not least was the amount of food and beverage vendors who got behind this major event as well. But it was a great opportunity, and thank you for the opportunity for me to do something.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. And I know you attend every year as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather be on stage than at the front of the stage. So, anyway, thank you.
I'll let the Queensland Symphony Orchestra know. Thank you.
Oh, they know. They won't let me.
No further councillor reports. No urgent business, no notice of motion, and no confidential items. Declare the meeting closed at 12. Hang on, sorry. You do have a... Oh, sorry, in a councillor report. We don't have general business, and there's urgent business, unless it's urgent. Yeah, councillor report. Sorry.
Sorry about that. My apologies. I just wanted to, it saddens me, but to see the Boyne Tannum Rotary Club shut its doors for the final time. I just wanted to do a shout out to everyone that's been part of that committee that's done such an amazing job here. It is, it's a sad day, but one I think that we need to honour and commemorate everyone who has volunteered their time and effort to make this place a better place. So thank you to all of them.
Here. Thank you. On that, no urgent business, no notice of motion, no confidential items. Declare the meeting closed at 12:20 a.m. Thank you, Boyne Tannum Rotary.